Hey guys, we're live. It is Thursday night. This is Barrio Sutiaba in Leon, Nicaragua. I'm Scott Allen Miller, and we are live because it's Thursday, and this is what we do. So I'm excited to have everybody here. Excited that we are up and running. Hopefully, got everything set up and working. All of our little guides say that everything is good. I'm checking all the stats. We're going to see when people start hopping on. We're on the XS20 as we normally are, but we are using the Suri 23mm on kind of a high point. I switched the lights around a little bit early so we have light in the background. This evening we'll switch that around later when people get on, but right now it's just me talking to myself. See how it is? That's what's going on. I'm going to try to get the monitor up. I can't start that until people are on. We got a couple people on. Hey guys, I have not sent out the link yet. I should probably do that. That's going to make a difference. Getting that out there. We have this great announcement system, and all right, we are going to see what's going on. There is so much activity in all the expats groups. It's impossible to know what's going on. All right, a lot of funny commentary. I'm going to try to keep up with that as we're going through everything. All right, we got 4 people on. I'm announcing in the group. All right, we had a number of people get into town this week, which is pretty cool that we have so many people moving in. Like, this is like official week of arrivals. We have so many people who are normally on watching the live stream and are now actually here, which is really cool. So that's pretty exciting that is going on. We got 5 people on now, and hopefully our video stream is good tonight. All right, what do we got? 10 people. All right, yeah, the live announcing on the live stream is fantastic. What a difference that makes. It really gets us people fast. Has completely changed how we do the show, which is pretty cool. And my dogs are here trying to get in. Of course, we are starting the show, and there is dogs needing. So I'm going to go get the dogs. Hold on, everybody. We're going to be right back. I got nobody here to manage the dogs. I'm on my own. Come on. I can never show these while we're doing the show, but this is the 33mm. We're on the 23mm, but this lets you see kind of what we're working with for lenses here. I think that turned out nice. These are nice. I really like these white ceramic coated Suri Sniper series lenses. I have all 5 of them, so we can do all kinds of different focal lengths. I do when I'm doing the close-up for the new look in the studio. That's using the 16mm, which is pretty cool. All right, we got 15 people on. Desert Sunset, first to say hello. Hey, Desert, good to have you here. Federico Cabrota is here. Howdy. A number 1 Exodus. Yes, the Exodus from North America. We are seeing so many people arriving here in Nicaragua. Like, people joke about, and mostly we're joking, that there's going to be a mass exodus. Is there a 5% increase? For sure. Like, we're seeing that stuff, but is there, like, really a mass exodus happening or going to happen? Well, the reality is that we're seeing an uptick in people coming to the country in the last month that is quite dramatic. And most of them already had it in motion, so it's not like, whoa, this is like crazy, but something had already made this a time period where a lot of people were looking at coming in, and we really, really notice it. So it's quite interesting. 110 Cupcake 123. Hola, hi. Good to have you here, Cupcake. Mary W's here. Hola, working, but we'll be popping on and off the live stream. Very cool. Janet is here already. Lol, I'm here. I'll leave it running while I go to the store. Normally she has to work. Today she's going to the store. Frederico is, yes, I left 6 months ago. Saw the writing on the wall. Yeah, there's a lot of people have been working on getting out now. Janet says, well, I'm always popping on and off. I'll try to leave it running on the computer, though, while I go away. That's good advice for everyone. Leave it running, because the more you leave it running, the better the show does. Just the realities of YouTube. All right, setting up the monitor on the other screen so I can see what's going on, and often I read the messages up there rather than down here. How do I contact you, sir? This is from, okay, my eyes are so old. positive timeline. All right, which implies they're moving forward in time and not backwards in time. A negative timeline would be, heading towards dinosaurs. Anyway, you can contact me a number of ways. Positive, we have, if you look in the show notes, I don't know if it's in the show notes for the live, but the show notes for the regular show has it's not. No, it's there. The expat community on WhatsApp is at the top of the show description, even for the live. So you should be able to scroll down and see it. Actually, I'm going to scroll down on my own screen and verify that this is true before I tell a lie. And there's the show. There's the more button, and there is the yes. So if you just click more below the show, you should be able to see how to contact all of us on WhatsApp, but also my email should be in there as well. Yes, it is. So, and we're going to be adding in. We're up to 25 people. Wow, we're getting running quickly. We're going to be adding in the link, which I'm doing right now. We're going to do this several times throughout the show. Marcella, who helps to manage the show here, many of you know because we had an episode on it, but for those who missed it or are not aware or looking for the link, we have a GoFundMe to help Marcella, who is often on the show because she's been mostly off the show for the last 6 months because she has stage 4 Hodgkin lymphoma, which is a form of lymphatic cancer. She is getting treatment. The healthcare here in Nicaragua has been fantastic, but she does have a lot of expenses. She has no clothes that she can wear anymore. She has to get wigs. She has to send her kids to a different city than she lives in. She has to have a lot of support network stuff, and so we're trying to raise enough money so that she has a run rate of about $200 per month for the next 2 years to help her pay for people to clean her house and watch her kids and transport her family places, because there's a lot of things that she traditionally either doesn't need to do because she's home with her kids, which she can't watch them now, or that need or needs that happen because of the treatment. The healthcare itself is free, but everyone who is helping out with the fundraiser, she really, really appreciates that, and she's going to try to be on the show at some point this evening, but she's also both very tired and trying to live her life as much as she can in between chemotherapy sessions. So we're going to pop that in a few times during the show because we really do want to get the word out there about that. NJ says, how often does Scott have these live streams? I'm loving this. Every week, NJ. It's not clockwork, but it's pretty close. I think we missed 4 episodes over the course of all of 2024. And mostly we miss them like during the holidays on December and January. So we started doing this like the last week of January, I think, 2024. I didn't even realize. We basically did the whole year of live streams, and then I was out of the country and tried to do it a little bit, but my travel days were on my Thursdays. So we missed a couple, but in general, we do these every Thursday, and we do it all evening. So it depends if our technology's working, if people are on, but we try to do between 5 and 8 hours pretty typically. So it's a lot of fun. This is a good group. It's really cool. And once a week, us all getting together is like really neat because you guys can talk in real time, which I realize the WhatsApp group has made a lot of that less relevant, but it is a big deal, and you guys can like have me talking in real time, which is a little bit different. So it's a lot of fun. I can't believe we've been doing this for a year. It's funny because my wife, my kids, they're just like, oh, it's Thursday, it's live stream day. Like that's just what Thursdays are. And my wife's been on sometimes. Marcel has been on sometimes. Liesel, my daughter, has been on a little bit as a voice in the background, and Dr. Jorge, our veterinarian, has been on for this. So it's pretty cool. Janet, positive. NJ. Janet says, well, my next class is at 6 today. JJ Loza, welcome. I really hope there aren't any travel bans on Nicaragua. I go there often. Right now, there's no travel ban, but boy, is there a lot of talk in the U.S. They keep ramping up their rhetoric against Nicaragua because Marco Rubio has some personal vendetta, and he is in a position of being heard. So there's a lot going on that really could happen. However, travel ban here in Nicaragua won't mean that you can't get here. It will primarily be that it's more difficult, more costly, but going through Liberia, going through Tegucigalpa, and don't worry, if there's a travel ban, I'm going to be out there making videos of exactly how to get here I think we have one on how to get here from Liberia. If I don't, I have an awful lot of the information, including like where to stay, which hostel to stay at by the bus station, which buses to take, how much it costs, what to do at the border. Like we've got that for the Costa Rica side. We're going to do the same thing if we need for the Honduras side, because anyone that's coming, for example, here may consider coming into Honduras or into El Salvador and coming down by bus or shuttle to Leon instead of to Managua, which, again, it's going to be more annoying and more expensive, but there's a lot of cool ancillary stuff as well. Flying into Tegucigalpa is not that far from the border, and flying into San Salvador is a little ways from the border, but you can get a hopper flight in from San Salvador, or just take the shuttle out of San Salvador. Honestly, pretty nice. Yeah, it's long, but you get to see all of El Salvador, a little bit of Honduras, and you come into Leon, so you're right down the street. Like, it's super nice. All right. Edwin, hey, Scott, did you see that horrific plane crash in Philadelphia? A medic Learjet carrying 6 people. Yep. Oh, yeah. We saw it. We were out at Via Via when that happened. That's the 3rd plane crash in the U.S. in a week, but the last one last night, no injuries. Positive found the email. Good. Edwin says, and just season 25 of Air Crash Investigation just came out. Federico says, that sucks. Hope it goes okay for Marcella. My ex had that. Not fun. Yeah, she's been, honestly, she's been so sick for so long. She hasn't been on the show for like 6 months because she couldn't breathe. And they found it because it had allowed tumors in her lungs. They're not cancerous tumors in her lungs. Before anybody panics, she has lymphatic cancer. It is stage 4. That is bad enough. But she does not have lung cancer. She has tumors in her lungs that are benign, but they still take up 50% of her lung capacity. So they went in to find everything because of that, and eventually found the cancer. But she's had about 6 months of treatments going on as they try to figure out what is wrong, because it's a very difficult thing to diagnose. Jan says, don't forget to have an event for Marcella, too. Oh, yes, we're going to try to do, at some point, we have to schedule this with her, because she is in Leon a little over half the time. We're going to try to do some kind of event where people can come out and see her, like put on a concert and do like a fundraiser locally. That is part of the plan. Janet will be back soon. Carlos is here. Hey, Scott, have you been to Selva Negra in Matagalpa? I've driven past it, but honestly, this is funny. Everybody goes to Selva Negra, and I honestly have not been. 10 years in the country. I know exactly where it is. I know exactly what it is. Everybody goes there. But it's a tourist place, which is nothing wrong with that. But those are not the kind of places that I go. I really want to, if I'm in Matagalpa, I want to see Matagalpa. If I'm on that road, I want to stop at the little local restaurants and stuff. Selva Negra doesn't really do anything to draw me in. I'm sure it's beautiful. Everybody loves it. Like, I'm sure it's great. They do a wonderful job up there. They got one of the best reputations in the country. But it's still like a hotel and just the grounds of a kind of small resort, which is super cool, but not my vibe. So I never make an effort to go out there. I don't get to spend as much time in Matagalpa and Jinotega in that region as I want already. And so if I'm there, I'm not there going, ooh, what do I do? I'm there going, oh, I don't have enough time already. So I'm not looking for places to go out and get away or anything. Edwin says, did you see those video clips from traffic jams in Managua in the Pista Héroes de la Insurrección deviation streets? That would be the detour streets. Jams everywhere. Too many people had to leave the bus and go on foot. No, I didn't see videos of that. Is it just traffic jams because the main highway is closed? Federico says, I live in Matagalpa, did 7 kilometers today just shopping. Love it. Everyone I talk to who ends up living in Matagalpa does a lot of walking. They really just end up being very on foot all the time, which is pretty awesome. To have it feel so walkable, which is, given that it's a mountain town, is surprising in some ways. When Scott Moore was up there, he was always like, ooh, these hills. But at the same time, those hills are in cooler weather, so it's much easier to get out and walk in a lot of cases than out here in Leon, where it's a lot more flat, but the distances are farther and the heat is oppressive. 110 Cupcake says, check out restaurant La Casa de Don Facundo. It's in Paulsila in the hills between Matagalpa and Jinotega. It's a hidden gem. I feel like I've seen that on a sign or something, but I'm not 100% sure. What is your opinion on the private hospitals in Nicaragua? They're very good. We use them all the time. So I use Amoxa because I live here in Leon. If you're in Chinandega, they have the same hospital system, Amoxa. I've used them for some major events, mostly not for me, but for people that I'm taking there. I use them for X-rays and all kinds of different basic things. They've been really good. Michael, who's in probably here. They had to use them yesterday. I think it worked out pretty well. Definitely your first time, you're a little bit like, ooh, what's going on? It's a little bit confusing trying to figure things out, but it's good. It's good overall. And we've used Vivian Pellis in the capital, and they are just fantastic, far and away. Never had anything even come close in the United States to the quality of those. So that's been very, very good. But also the public hospitals here obviously can be quite rough. It depends where you're going, what the situation is, why you're there, which one you're at, because they vary a lot between the new ones in the big cities and the old ones in small towns. They're going to be very different things. But especially now because of Marcella being sick, we spent a bit of time at Fonseca, at Manolo. Jimmy had to do stuff at Old Leon, the one that is currently open before the new one opens up. I've been to a few others. I've been to Sutiava a number of times, and they're often very not fancy, not catering to an American audience at all, but that doesn't mean that they aren't providing really good health care, and the actual care that we've experienced in the public hospitals has been generally quite impressive in public hospitals, I think I said. And you know, people tell us, well, they don't even feed you, right? You got to have people bring you food. Well, that turns out not to be the case. It turns out that Nicaraguans are often very picky about their food and don't want the food from the hospital every day. And so say they don't feed you, and it turns out that they actually do, which is pretty surprising when you've been told so much that they don't feed you, and then you find out that if you're sick, you get free food on top of everything else. So they really do take care of you, even though the food is boring, and it's bland, and it's mostly rice and beans. It is completely healthy and available and free, and they feed you and take care of everything. So we've been just very impressed with both the public and private here. Been very good. Frederico says, well, in Los Lipes, no walk, but I'm a quarter of a mile from town, so not too hilly. Oh, not bad. Edwin says, vehicle K reaching very long. Oh, the vehicle Q reaching very long at Carretera Norte deviation roads. El Eden Bridge is the only road open for traffic and pedestrians from going to and from Belo Horizonte to Mercado Oriental. Horrible there. A number one says, we visited the Vivian Pellis Hospital in Managua. Excellent facility. It really is. It is an impressive facility. And if you're doing more than visiting and you're actually there for acute care, we were so impressed. Like, just an amazing experience across the board. Everything was truly, truly good. We felt the doctors were so professional. We felt that the facility was so professional. The equipment so good. Just the level of care, the concern that they showed. It was very good. Now, many people that miss going to work in these difficult days now have to wake up earlier at 4 a.m. to avoid those rush hour traffics between 6 and 8. Yeah, I'm hoping that is done soon. That is a major highway upgrade in the city. Positive says, like the frame of this video. Thanks, Scott. I'm looking at it. It does look good, actually, now that you're right. I see it in little there with really deep colors, and then I see it way over there with not so deep colors, and then sometimes I see it here, and the colors vary a lot. But yeah, I like this one. So for future reference, 23 millimeter, raised above the monitors. Light is on my left, not on my right where it normally is. Only one light, but we've got the back right now, and it's the Suri at 1.8, I believe. From what I can see from here, I like it. It says, woo, I just finished watching and commenting on today's video. I love the drama. Oh, gosh, what was today's video? Oh, is today Trapped Wife episode 3? Is that what it is? Today's the how to save his wife. That's actually a 5-part series. I believe we've wrapped it up at part 5, but it went to 5. if I'm not mistaken, I have the next 2 weeks of the Trapped Wife saga queued up so that they're always in the afternoon before the live stream. Because I think they're less popular videos, but whatever we do before the live stream is less popular. We just had our first networking glitch, so we're going to see how much that impacts us. Yep, frozen. Well, Jerky, let me know how the audio is. Oh, cool. We're getting little love bombs in the comments. That's cool. Yes, there's audio. Or yes, it's the... it's, 52 people on. Wow, we are popular tonight. All right, we're giving this a second. I'm sure it's going to even out. I have no dogs. But now I have dogs. I think he just... Yep, one just came in. We have a very good crowd. This audio is great. Okay, doesn't matter that it's a little bit jerky on the video then. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So, yeah, the Trapped Wife saga, I don't know. That is all so crazy. I'm never quite sure what needs to be done. And he goes back and forth, and he seems like he's really appreciating how helpful it is. So it's like, okay, but and his final response that I've seen has been very, good. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna come there. We're gonna figure this thing out. I'm gonna make it work. And I'm like, okay. But then sometimes he goes back to things are really expensive or something weird. But he seems to be evening out. We'll see. Dave Wilson, hey Scott, getting 10 centimeters of snow here in New Brunswick tonight. Yeehaw. I don't miss the north. Do not miss the north. Not at all. Patricia says, yeah, it froze twice and had no audio. Audio's working now. Oh, that's too bad. Future Nicaraguan expat. Excellent. Awesome to have you here. Tom Mathers, or is it Mathers? It looks like Mathers to me. Like, oh no. Wait, isn't Tom Mathers the name of is it? It's Leave It to Beaver. What's the actor's name who did Leave It to Beaver? It'd be awesome if it was actually Tom Mathers who's on the show and he calls himself a dividend stock guy, but he's actually Beaver. That would be super cool. I'm sure I have the wrong name. I'm looking it up. How many people? Okay, quick poll in the community. More networking issues. How many of you watched Leave It to Beaver? Jerry Mathers. It's Tom's little brother. Probably old brother. Probably very old brother, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Wow. Yeah, when was Leave It to Beaver? 1957 to 1963. How is that possible? Jerry Mathers is currently 76 years old. Yep. That, playing the character of Theodore Beaver Cleaver, the youngest son of the suburban couple June and Ward Cleaver, Barbara Billingsley, and Hugh Beaumont. That's great. I haven't watched that in forever, but I used to watch Leave It to Beaver. I'm of that age. It was still popular. Just 2 years ago, 2.5, Tony Dow, who played Wally Cleaver, passed away at 77. That's wow. What else whatever was he ever in? In 1983 to 1989 for 6 years, he was in a television movie and in the new Leave It to Beaver. I had no idea there was a new Leave It to Beaver. How did I miss that? What? That is super weird. Okay. Is it Dean 70? I have a question about bugs. Do they get in the home often? So we don't have screens on the windows. We don't close the doors. I mean, the house is wide open. So yeah, we have bugs pretty much all the time. Mostly it's moths. Different seasons have different things. Right now it's cricket season. But, we say like, oh my gosh, it's cricket season. There's been 5 crickets over the last several weeks. right? Around Christmas is tarantula season here where I am. So we get a few, but I also do nothing to discourage them, and I don't kill them. So I'm like, and getting them to go outside. So the same one might be coming back in. We don't get really that many bugs, but we do nothing to discourage them. We have lots of bright lights on at night that draws them in. There's little bugs, gnats, flies, they'll come in, but we don't get anywhere near the gnats or flies or mosquitoes or stuff that we used to get in Texas, even with the windows closed. So it's a bit different. But pretty much the majority of people in Nicaragua live with their windows open, at least during the day. And because of this, it really shows just how little concern there are about bugs. People don't sit around worrying about it the way that we used to back in the United States, where the bugs are so much more of a problem. They're so much more prevalent. I think it's way better here, but certainly there are some. But if you wanted to have a house that was screened and had normal North American doors and sealed off, I think you'd find you'd basically have none, because there's so many fewer outside trying to get in compared to where most people are coming from. Ernesto, audio is good, but it was freezing for a few seconds. The Dean says, I belong to a Bugs of Nicaragua's Facebook page, and some are really impressive, and most I've never seen before. Definitely different bugs here, no question. Goala, hi, been watching your videos. We all have plans to move to Nicaragua, and your videos have helped. Well, awesome. I'm so glad. And welcome to the live stream. Frederick, freezing again. Yeah, I saw that. Keep going. That's an encouraging name if I ever heard one. What age did Scott start traveling? So I grew up, I'm born and raised in Rochester, Buffalo, and Western New York. So Toronto is right over the border. So I've been traveling international, if you count Canada as international, which I think traditionally we did not, and right now we definitely do, or they consider it that at least. So going to Canada and lots of parts of Canada was second nature growing up, and that was an important part of giving me the mental space to be like, you can just go to another country. Of course you can. And some people are like, well, yeah, you can go to Cancun, and it's like this special resorty thing, but I didn't have that experience. My experience was driving over one of 3 international crossings on a regular basis, and then the Ottawa crossings from time to time, and we traveled between states all the time. But I was used to working in multiple currencies when I was very young. I was used to miles and kilometers and the accent that you run into just being different, and different culture, different food, different restaurant chains. One of the things I always make fun of or just find entertaining is that you can tell when you're in the US or Canada because the fonts change. Canada uses, or the US uses, depending on how you look at it, very unique fonts generally compared to the opposite country. They just have different typefaces for everything, and it's really, really noticeable. For example, Canada is much more sans serif, and the United States is much more serif. It's such a funny thing to notice, but we really did. And they would have all the Tim Hortons and stuff. It's really good. So it's I always had that. But I didn't start really traveling international until my wife and I, and this is surprisingly old, I think. I think people in general will be like, wow, you really waited. But remember, my wife and I always traveled to Canada, and I worked a ton. Both of us were very much working professionals, keeping our lives moving forward. And so the time and money in our early 20s to simply pack up and go to other countries, could we have done it? Yes. We knew no one who had. We didn't have people who were like, yeah, I did this, just do that. It was pre-internet. And so we very different time. And that's one of the reasons that I like having this channel, is I think it encourages a lot of people to be like, oh, totally able to just do this, and here's what it costs, and here's how you do it. And I think it's a valuable thing. So in 2007, when I would have been 31, so most of my life was not traveling. We had wanted to travel. We had talked about traveling, just didn't figure out how to do it. We went to my office. So we traveled for work, right? We traveled over to the UK. We went to England and Northern Ireland because I had offices in both places. And I went and worked from the offices for a little bit, just, kind of like a vacation, but working from different offices. And absolutely had a fantastic time. We knew we would, right? We were very not nervous about it. It was just having the money and the time and stuff to be able to do it. And we'd always wanted to go. So I worked most of the time we were there, and she was mostly a tourist. She just hopped on buses and toured around places and did museums and stuff without me. And I went to the office without her. And so we had this very different experience. And basically we're traveling solo with the exception of being at the hotel together. So it was kind of a being thrown to the fire as far as travel experience sort of thing, but it was in English, of course, so it's really, really easy. And we had this really interesting, fun time because I had all these office friends I'd worked with for years. They would all come out and go with us to the pub and have a big fun evening and sing and just do events together. We had this wonderful time doing that, and just fell in love with traveling, fell in love with the UK, and so that was kind of our introduction and gave us a lot of confidence. 2 years later, I had when I had taken my first job on Wall Street, which was a year or two before going to England, I had worked in that I was going to Germany. I'd always wanted to go to Germany, just in general. I'm German. I wanted to visit, and there was a historic event that was hitting 2,000 years, and I'm like, I am going to be there for the anniversary. I want to see the 2000th anniversary of the Varusschlacht. And it was just this really meaningful, personal, historic event to me that no one else cares about. So when I took my job on Wall Street, I went to the interview and they made me an offer, and I said, okay, but September 9th, 2009, I will be in Germany. I'm off for that week. That is part of my contract. And this was in 2006. And they're like, that's in years from now. And I'm like, yep. And it's a requirement. It goes into my contract. And they're like, what? They're like, no one does that. I'm like, I'm doing that. They're like, okay, fine. Like, who's going to argue with you want a guaranteed vacation date 3 years in advance? Done. So they put it in and never thought another thing of it because it wasn't a big request, right? It was just no one is getting this date before me. And then when it rolled around, I stopped by my boss's office, the same boss. I guess my boss's boss was now my boss, and my original boss had moved on to another bank. And I walked into my boss's office, and by this time I was the senior person. I was basically a senior vice president. And I walked in and I'm like, so just a reminder, right? A couple weeks, I'm going to be going to Germany for a while. And he looks up at me and he kind of looks quizzical and his eyes get really big and he's like, oh my gosh, we have to call Jimmy. And he picks up the phone and he calls the other bank. He calls Credit Suisse and gets James Vianney on the phone. And Jeff, this is mostly for my own recollection, Jeff Rubio's whose office I was in, he called Jimmy Vianney. And he's like, Jimmy, I got Scott in my office. He's like, yeah? And then he's like, do you remember in back at his final interview, he negotiated for a week off? It's next week. He's going to Germany. And they're like dying. Like, it's a real thing. He's actually going to Germany. But we had just had a baby, Liesel, who was on the show 2 weeks ago. And she was too young to fly. We thought she was going to be able to fly. And then at the last second, my wife's like, I'm not really comfortable with it. So my wife and baby daughter stayed home. And I went to Germany alone because I've been planning for years. And she's like, no, you have to go. So I did 2 weeks in Germany completely on my own. No plans, except I had like this thing I was doing to go to the museum and the battlefield and spend the anniversary on the battlefield. And by the way, we're at 62 people. We've never hit that this early in the show before. Like, this is welcome, everybody. This is fantastic. We did hit 208 last week, just not this early in the show. At a single time. That's how many people were watching at once. So I seat in my pants. My wife is a planner. So when we went to the UK, she had every single detail planned out before we went, which was fine, made it very easy. But when we got to, when I got to go to Germany, doing it completely on my own, I'm like, I'm not going to do any planning. I'm not going to do anything like that because I hate it. I want to just show up, and do whatever I'm going to do and just have that flexibility. And my wife's like, this is so stressful for me and I'm not even going. I want nothing to do with this. I can't hear about it. Like, she was freaking out. And I actually flew into the Netherlands, not into Germany, and got off the plane at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam. And I'm just like, okay. So I'm in the Netherlands. There has to be a way to get to Germany from here, which of course there is, and it's nice and easy. And the whole thing, but I just wandered into a train station. I'm like, hey, can I get a ticket to Germany? They're like, yeah, where are you going? I'm like, Osnabrück, and they're like, sure. And they give me a ticket, and they're like, yep, just the track 8, and all right. And it was so comfortable and so easy and such a wonderful experience. But so at this point, I'm on the continent. My wife had never been onto continental Europe. And I went, and I didn't get a car, I didn't rent a car, I didn't do anything. I stayed in a hotel on the outskirts of Osnabrück, which is not a touristy city. I stayed in not a touristy suburb, and walked everywhere. I'd walk downtown, I'd walk out to the battle site, I'd walk through the fields, I'd walk to other villages, and I just walked and walked and walked, and I went to every museum in town. I went to every restaurant I could reasonably find. I had just gotten, not too long before that, a really good Nikon D50 DSLR. I had, for that trip, gotten a GPS unit that actually attached onto it. Today, you got that stuff on your phone. This is in the pre-smartphone era. There were no iPhones yet, or I certainly hadn't seen one yet. And so a lot of those things, like having good communications when you're out walking around, having data on your camera, and very difficult. So going around with an old CCD D50 with 6 megapixel images, which are all up on Flickr. For those look in the show notes, my Flickr's public. Just had such a fantastic time. I loved it. It felt more like home than anywhere I'd ever been. I'd find many places that felt more like home since then, but it really was comfortable. It really was a place that I could be. Like, I was really happy. And so I came back from Germany, and of course my wife was very anxious to get to go. She was very sad that she had not gotten to go with me. And so we started making plans to really get a chance to go, but Liesel was a baby, and pretty soon we were pregnant with Luciana, and so that gave us a little couple years where we couldn't really travel heavily. And during that window, we also moved to Texas. We moved from New York to Texas in late 2009, just a few months after that event. And then, so there's a lot of upheaval in our lives. All of 2011, we spent planning to really go travel. 2012, we took the children, because finally they were old enough. 2011, my youngest was an infant. 2012, I took months off from work, and we backpacked Europe with our kids, going to as many places as we could, with the hopes of, one, seeing enough of Europe to kind of get a travel bug out of our system. Like, we had to see certain sites and stuff to be like, okay, we've seen the things, now we can like do meaningful travel, because we're not like, it's like going to Disney World. You can't enjoy the rest of Disney World until you've been on Pirates of the Caribbean, right? You just got to get it out of the way, and then you can enjoy stuff. And so we were like, we have to get Venice out of the way. We have to see hill towns in Italy. And so all of 2011 we spent, and this is important because of the show that I do, we spent all of 2011 watching Rick Steves every day. We watched literally all 8 seasons that he put out, at least twice on every episode. We took so many notes, went on so many maps, figured out so many routes. We did so much planning, and we had to, because we had a baby. We couldn't go anywhere. And so in 2012, when we backpacked for 2 months, we saw and did so much around Europe. It was just fantastic. It was the biggest thing. 9 countries, and we saw them deeply. We walked everywhere. We backpacked. We never rented a car. We did for a couple days. Like in Italy, I drove. That was like it. It was like all the driving I did that entire trip was just a couple days, I think, in Italy. And the rest of the time we were taking trains and taxis, and it was just an unbelievably magical trip. And my daughters want to go back and do that trip again, because obviously they were tiny. They don't remember any of it. So 2012 was this huge year. Then we had another couple years where we just weren't able to go places. We had so much going on in life that made it really impossible. And then in 2014, we really were able to be like, we're just done, we're moving. And it ended up taking a few months longer due to complications at work. But right at the beginning of 2015, we just moved to Europe and never looked back. We've moved on to other places, but we are never going back to the U.S., and it was always an adventure to figure out where we really wanted to be. So since roughly 2012, we've pretty much been in more or less continuous motion, traveling. So I was 31, I think is the answer. That makes sense. But if you consider domestic travel or Canada, I have just always traveled to such an extreme degree that it's kind of an in the middle sort of thing, because I would go from New York to Georgia. Someone would just call me and be like, "Hey, we have a meeting in Georgia." I'd be like, "Okay, get in the car and drive there." I drove back and forth between New York and Texas more than 40 times. I would drive to Maine on a regular basis. I did, most of the provinces of Canada multiple times, and driving them. So we really saw places. I've driven, nearly every state, nearly all the provinces. So it's even without having left the U.S. and Canada, the amount of traveling that I've done is quite extreme. Georgia Bowens, my lights went out just at the same time as the audio went out. Quite a coincidence. That's funny. Desert says we all watched it. Leave it to Beaver. Tom Mather says Jerry was his third cousin. Same with M&M third cousin. Oh, right. Patricia Flaherty says Leave It to Beaver was before my time. Treasure of the time. Tony Dow had an amazing Big Brother presence. He did. All right, Tom says, Scott, sarcastic trigger warning. Are you excited to order JP and Amelia's How to Order Prescriptions from Abroad course, or better yet, AK Joel's Dating Colombian Women Masterclass? Absolutely. I have both of those on pre-order. You get a 10% discount if you order months in advance and book your copy before they go on sale. So, of course, those two probably actually go together. Something tells me that AK Joel's Dating Colombian Women Masterclass involves ordering pharmaceuticals from somewhere. That is a very dark tongue-in-cheek, but yeah. My gosh. The things that people will sell. I hate the tiny ants. Federico, if you hate tiny ants, imagine the big ones. Patricia says, well, the commercials work fine. Oh, good. Stuart is here. Hola desde Japón. Very exciting. How are things in Japan? I'm another Duolingo malpractice victim. I don't even know if I did my Duolingo today. We may be wrapping up on the early side so I can get through my Duolingo. Andrew Neal, hey, welcome to the live stream. Hey, Scott, thanks so much for doing this show. Love it. Do you buy all of your Apple computers and devices straight off of the Apple Store? I do. I think the Apple Store is the way to go. You can get financing there that you can't get other places. You get better customer service and protections, and sometimes there's a few options. You also know you're not having to deal with anything counterfeit or weird or old or falling off the back of a truck. And nothing real is going to have discounts. So I think if you have access to an Apple Store, it's the way to go. If you don't have access to one, just use the Apple Store to have it delivered to you if you're in a country that has the Apple Store. But yeah, that's definitely what I do. When I'm back in the States, I'll swing into the Apple Store and have like a list of, I need new headphones, I need a new phone, I need whatever, and just walk in and be like, okay, here's the things I need, and I'll call ahead. And it's a bit of overhead, but I think for as little shopping as I do, I think it's well worth it. Dedine70, I speak Castilian Spanish pretty well. How long will it take to get used to the Nica Spanish? A lifetime? I'm not sure. A long time. It is very colonial Spanish. It's very awkward. So if you speak really good, so first of all, if you speak Castilian, you're going to be able to get around just fine, right? People will understand you. You will stand out as a European for sure, right? With your azúcar and azuero and all the sounds with the, because I used to live in Andalusia and very used to it. But and I stand out because I still have the Andalusian lisp that doesn't go away. But the big thing is learning the Vos forms and the slang. But beyond that, it's not that dramatic. But you'll probably hear it and notice it for a long time. Healing pain naturally. What's the exodus? That is people leaving the U.S. and Canada, mostly the U.S., in crazy droves. I feel like the U.S. is getting so wild that Canadians leaving is probably getting to be less because they're more like, well, there's a comparison and maybe we should stay put. I feel like there was a moment where Canadians were really having this we got to go moment and then backed off significantly. But it's still happening. But now it's the Americans that are really, really going. Hello from Toronto. Welcome to the show. Toronto is almost my hometown. I grew up in Buffalo, just in the outskirts. Patricia says, wow, 208 is a lot of viewers. It was a lot of viewers. We were really shocked. That's why my wife hopped on the chat last week, is because she's like, wait, what's going on that there's 208 viewers at once, right? Over the course of the evening, we've hit 1,000, but that's, someone comes on at 5 o'clock, someone comes on at 8 o'clock, someone comes on at 12 o'clock, and so you get, people who have different shifts, but 208 people all at once watching the live stream. Wow. Yeah. Federico, got to go. Great night. Thank you all. Dadine says, that's called slow travel, what you did in Germany. I'm more like your wife, have to plan everything. Yeah, it was definitely slow travel. I mean, you could almost categorize it as single point travel. Like, I think slow travel normally implies that you have moved at some point to be slow. Like, a turtle is only slow when it actually moves. If it just stays still, it's more of stationary travel or not travel. Obviously I traveled to Germany, but once I was in Germany, I didn't keep traveling. I was in one spot. It's as slow as it can get, molasses in January, but yeah, very slow travel. In general, we've always been slow travelers. When we did our backpack whirlwind, it was not. And my wife went to burnout during that trip, and the whole thing was exhausting. And one of the big takeaways we got from it, and this is something that I'm adamant about on the show, is that like rushed just going from thing to thing so fast was great because we needed to see a lot of that stuff very quickly. But it wasn't actually all that pleasant. We every single place that we went to, we're like, oh, we could spend months here. Well, we got to go. And get to the next place. Oh, this is so beautiful. I could spend. Nope, time to go. And you're like, I never got to walk around town and see the restaurants. I never got to go grocery shopping. I never got to figure out what daily life is really like. We were too fast because we had to be. We were going to so many places. But when we returned, we never did that again. We're like, that was exhausting. That was too much. No. We did another backpacking tour, another grand tour of Europe in 2019, that time with my nieces rather than my kids, most of which I'll link this, but no one stopped watching the live stream for this, but there is see if I can find it, Take Flight with Scott channel, there it is, that documents at this time that trip in 2019, which was, we convinced, my nieces wanted to go all over the place, but we then convinced them that spending half of the time just in Greece, doing Athens and going to Crete, and then doing things around Crete, doing beaches in Crete, going to the different cities in Crete, going to museums, going to the ruins, was really good. And so we spent a bunch of time in Crete and a bunch of time in Italy, and then just popped through France, did a little bit of Spain. It was all very quick, and it was a really good trip, and especially the time in Greece was so fantastic because we were there for so long. We were there for weeks. We had time to really settle into a cute little house that we rented a car, drove all over, and we had lived just a few towns away previously, so it was really good. The whole thing was fantastic. Stuart says, I like to watch Rick Steves too. I left the USA in 1997. Very cool. Has Rick made a new season in forever? I don't feel like he has. He was making such good content, and then I think he got older and just kind of drifted off. So it was like, the world has changed, media's changed. Now there's YouTube travel stuff. He wasn't, not that he lost relevance, but there became competition that wasn't there before. He used to be the one and only, and then it became this thing where there was lots of other people doing it, so maybe he didn't have to do it anymore. Sorry, I have a few messages I have to check in on. I see. My comment on today's video got deleted. I think it's because I used the word scammer. Could be. Oh, if you're using it in reference to a person, there is some amount of possibility that it detects it as less than happy speech. By the way, our own Luke Graham has a new YouTube channel, and he just posted his first video today, and I've not had a chance to watch it because I'm doing this. But he does have a new show, so again, don't leave the live stream to go watch this, but if you could subscribe and like and support his channel. He just arrived in Nicaragua, and you can see him talking. So that is his link. And also, if you have not watched the Take Flight with Scott series, definitely go give those a watch. Like, I actually am very happy with those videos. There's like 10 or maybe 12 of them. They're not very long. They're like 5 minutes. So the whole series is only like watching 1, maybe 2 of my normal videos from the vlog. But I really like some of the scenery. We had a really good time. It's a completely different vibe. That's the show where I learned how to edit videos. I did the whole thing. I'd never done any editing before that trip. I took finally cameras with me, and it was different because whenever I'd done it in the past, when we lived in Europe for years, I always had a GoPro, and I'm like, I'm gonna film stuff. But just a GoPro, like, I didn't have enough to like go film stuff. Like, it was too rough. And on that trip, it wasn't me traveling, it was my niece traveling, and I was kind of like a chaperone almost. And it was her graduation. She had just graduated from junior college, and it was her graduation present was this 2 months in Europe. And I had from work a Lumix FZ300 camera. It was really, really good. And so I'm like, okay. And she's like, I want to do like the Instagram trip of Europe. I want to go places and just take pictures. That's what she wanted to do. And I'm like, okay. And so I always had the camera with me every moment of every day. And both of my nieces, but especially the younger one, was just like, I want to be on camera every moment. And so it was a really unique opportunity where I had nothing to do but take pictures and drive people around. And I had my niece, who was like always wanting to be on camera. So unlike now where I'm on camera all the time and have to film myself and there's all this complication and it's the boringness of me having to just stationary put the camera, I had a person who was out doing things and doing activities and wanted the camera on her at all times. And so we took over 5,000 photographs and enough footage that I didn't edit it until COVID, so 2 years later at least. And I never finished them all. Maybe I'll get to it yet. So I had this footage, but I'd never filmed for editing. So I had to learn how to edit and turn it into shows, figure out how to get music, and do a whole bunch of things. So a lot of what I know how to do on the channel now, I learned from taking those and turning them into something. But I really like how they turned out for the most part, partially because we went to such amazing places, and my nieces were having so much fun making the show and had no idea how we were going to use it. And it was just a really good experience. So check those out. Go subscribe to that channel, give it a like. I mean, it's never going to make money, but it would be cool to at least show that lots of people like to watch it. Patricia, I'm going to go check out your comment, see if I can track it down. I think I need caffeine. I'm drinking a lot of water, but my mouth feels very dry. I'm not liking it. We actually have live the person who's in the Trapped Wife. I'm going to write really quickly. In case you didn't notice, these videos are quite old compared to your comments, meaning they were recorded after very early comments we've spoken or written many times since the video was recorded. It's from at least a week ago in real time. Okay, just making sure he doesn't think it's current. So the person who did the Trapped Wife saga just watched Trapped Wife 3, and he says, I understand, I'll attempt drop shipping. I'll contact my attorney there. I'll request residencia there. It will take time. Thank you. I trust you. I'll pay her bills remotely. I'll leave California. This is, he's repeating things I said in the video. She may be allowed to come to the USA. That's possible, but he can't bank on it, right? It's a long shot. I think that he feels it's likely, and I feel it's a long shot. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle, but it's definitely more challenging than I think he realizes. He says, I'll try to set up both. That's the smart way to go, of course. Thanks for not giving up. He says the day of reconning is here, which would make sense. He is going to recon, but he said it as if he meant reckoning. And reckoning and reconning look basically the same. So I'm not sure which he intended. Both apply. I'll do all you said. Cheers. And let's see. Keep us in the loop. Okay. All right. He said you should recommend lawyers to him to help him because they're going to break him and eventually ruin him. Yep, that's a possibility. And let's go see if Patricia has been held from... I need to respond to that one. As a Nicaraguan America, so this is a rude comment that was said to someone, I find this really weird, right? When someone's like, I grew up in America, but I'm Nicaraguan background, right? So this is like me. I grew up in America, but my background is Swiss. But he makes comments about Nicaragua as if he represents the country. But he's American. And that'd be me being like, Switzerland is going to get you. We don't want you here. And you're going to be like, you've never lived in Switzerland. What are you talking about? So some guy complained about that he was tricked into giving way too much of a tip, and that he found it really frustrating. And this guy just pops in. Now, this is blocked. No one sees this. And he's like, as a Nicaraguan America, I hope you never come back. Hope you never come back to America, because that's the only thing that makes sense in that context. If you didn't want him to return to Nicaragua, it would be, I hope you never go back, because it's not where you are. It's the same person who yelled at me that I didn't... So he's really condescending and rude, is the kind of background thing. And he's like, I'm not condescending. I'm like, you're talking about every American has to give a 100% tip. So I made a whole video that comes out in a few weeks about the dangers of over tipping and why it's considered rude worldwide, why Americans specifically don't understand how insulting it is, and why it actually causes economic problems. But no, Patricia, whatever you said either did in fact make it onto a post, which I don't see, or it got nuked by the actual filter, not the Scott review filter, which is like the one I just got. The big one, I don't see at all. Yeah, I'm not seeing your post on there at all. Yeah, Patricia, I'm pretty sure you got nuked. It is pretty easy to get nuked by the system, and I get no notification whatsoever. You could post 1,000 things that are all super rude, and I would never know. Unless they're just mildly maybe rude, then I'll see it. Guala says, from Europe, travel and living, how do you decide on Nicaragua? So, at first we were really sure we wanted to live in Europe. We really like Europe, love Europe still. But we came to Panama pretty early on in our travels and really liked it, and so decided to test the waters in Latin America more, and came to Nicaragua long ago, 10 years, yeah, long ago, and absolutely loved it, but then went to Europe again and lived for a long time. We didn't return for a number of years, and then I came back in 2019 with friends, and just was like, wow, the country has improved since we were there last, which is just 4 years, and there's more of the country to see, and just so much opportunity, and I felt really home. And it's got a lot of advantages. It's close to home, same time zone as where we had been living and such. Like, there's just a lot of things that kind of made it generally really good. on, people asking me questions. Someone says we got a website down, just what I need during a live stream. And yes, it is. Oh, no. It's because I don't know the name of my own website, and I put in the wrong one. It is down, but it's not as bad as it looks. So... I'm going to share it. I've got a contractor employee who is looking to get on somewhere and sent me a note about something else. So let him know where I am. And I'm having my daughter bring me tea because I really need caffeine. My eyes are just like, can't do it. Always a request while I'm on a live stream. The amount, it really shows how much I do not understand what they're doing at all. Oh. Menu things. Okay. Not an emergency. It's someone asking for something in reference to a menu, but they didn't say the word menu. Okay, cool. All is well. Things are going. Everything's going well. All right. Did I answer the last thing, or did I drift off? So, Nicaragua really partially just felt right. We loved Europe, but I feel that a lot of Europe, there's a couple things I don't like about Europe that make it kind of a negative as a permanent home. One is, oh, excuse me, it's way too early to be yawning. That's why I need the caffeine. It's like we normally wouldn't even start yet. One is that things are too polished. It's way too easy, too touristy, too just... There's already every single thing is packaged and ready, and everything's great. The food is amazing. People are nice. The variety in a small area is unbelievable. Like, there's some really cool stuff that way. But there is, it feels like it's like going to Disney World. Oh, it's great, but do I want to live there? And the answer for many people is yes. But the answer for many people would be no. I would get really tired of that quite quickly. And I feel Europe is big, and so it has this huge variety, and it's very safe to go from place to place and very simple. And that stuff's amazing. But if we are in Latin America has kind of the parts of Europe or European culture that I like the most, but combined with being much more... I don't know, rugged, raw, rough around the edges.
You should put that
Thank you.
Because we're out of water.
We're out of water?
Yeah.
How are we? Oh, okay. So I just add water to this?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. My tea has arrived. But the house has run out of water, so I have cold tea, cool tea. And here in the region, Nicaragua just felt right. Every place that we researched or visited, they're great, but Nicaragua was the right mix for us, I think, and very close to family. Very easy for us to get to family when we want to be there. Safe, affordable. The culture just fits for us. Like, we feel so much at home. I think my wife may even feel more at home here than I do, which is amazing. But she is so all right, it's Wednesday night. It's karaoke with the beach crew, and that's what we do. It's Friday. It is via with all of our friends in town, and we're gonna watch a concert, and that's what we do. And Tuesdays it's the dance party on the beach. Saturday night, dance party on the beach. She has an event nearly every night. It's easy to go out. There's always stuff going on. That's a really big deal for her, and it's part of the culture. It's not here's a little tiny sliver of things that we have to kind of fit our lives into. It's like we're very mainstream. We're that with everybody, and it's just really cool. So it's been it's been such a great fit for us for our lifestyle. The only real thing is the weather is hot. Stuart says everything in Japan is okay. The dollar is strong, the yen is weak, but the snow is a meter high. You're not selling me on Japan there. Joseph says, are deportees returned to Nicaragua yet? We have not heard of any. I have friends who are, primarily it's the parolees that are being returned at this time, which is weird that they're targeting only legal expats in the United States and not targeting illegals. Of course, illegals are being swept along too, but they're actually using the legal system to go find people who have papers, they're fully documented, fully tax-paying, fully legal expats, and deporting them, which really highlights what's going on. But it's so weird. But a lot of people I know are parolees. It was a popular thing for a bit, which actually really drained Nicaragua. So there's a lot of positive to them being returned. It'd be nice if they weren't all in one weekend, right? It's hard to absorb that many people in just a couple days, but the actual fact that they're returning isn't so bad. But none of the ones I know have been contacted about being returned yet, and they are aware that that is going to happen, but they have no idea when and how. But we have seen no one returned yet to the country. So I'm not aware of there having been flights at this time. That doesn't mean there isn't, but they haven't been a big enough deal for it to make the news that I'm aware of. Certainly have not seen the news today. Positive timeline. Why do you prefer living in Leon? So Leon is where I am, the second largest city in the country. It is the educational capital of the country, so a lot of the universities are here. It's just full of youthful life and energy. There's a lot of dance clubs and just activity going on because there's a younger population than many of the other cities. So that makes for a really cool lifestyle for sure. The big deal for us, the reason that we chose it initially, is that it's the only sizable city that is near the ocean. And so if you want to have a city and the beach, this is your choice. You don't get to shop around. And even neighboring countries don't really have that. So this is a unique offering here. So it's a big deal. That's what drove us here. My wife wanted to be near the beach. I wanted to be near the mountains. If it was up to me, I would have started in Matagalpa. We did start in Granada, so we have that experience. And then when we looked for a more permanent home, Leon won out. So we gave Leon a try, and that's what we decided to do. And I think that worked out. And having the beach be nearby is very nice. We like that a lot. And it's very near. It's like 12 minutes. So we're able to go all the time. Like today, I'm in the office working. My wife just goes out, catches a ride, and goes to the beach. She's there in a couple of minutes. So it's easy to go out and go to restaurants. It's easy to go see the water. It's easy to go hang out with activities because there's always stuff going on out at the beach. But it's also a big city, so there's always a lot going on in the city as well. So we just have a lot of options. So that part we really like. But the biggest deal for us has been that we really discovered a family environment that's just, we have so many really close, wonderful friends from the local community that Leon just became the place that we want to be. It is an awesome community of people. And because of that, we would never consider moving away. It doesn't mean that you will find the same group of people and really like it in the same way. But for us, that was such a significant thing, that there's so many people we want to hang out with and have as part of our circle of friends here. Would we have found that other places? Probably. But this is where we found it. And so we've been just really happy with that. So Leon is our permanent home. Like this is where we are. Steve says, I'm in Matagalpa now. Really like this Highlands weather. Matagalpa is definitely very nice. Luco says, hey, Scott and chat. Treasure the time. Do you anticipate any increased hostility directed at Americans as a result of our seemingly more isolationist policies? It's actually hard to believe the U.S. having more isolationist policies. It seems possible that they're doing it, but somehow hard to believe. But yes, no. So a very important thing is you have to remember that isolationism of the United States, or anything that's going on now, while negative to the rest of the world, it's negative kind of like that popular kid in school who doesn't feel like talking to you. It's not like they're beating you up. It's not like they took your lunch money. They're just kind of not interested in you. You're not cool enough for them, and they let you know, but they're not actually bullying you, unless that could be a form of bullying, but it's not a terrible one. I mean, all bullying is bad, let's be clear, but still, it's just a social snub for the most part. And I'm not saying that that's good, and I'm not defending the U.S. on this. I'm just saying that this is kind of the status that the U.S. and Nicaragua are at the moment. Is that going to escalate? Is more things going to happen? Probably. So expect that to change. But at the moment, this is very minor. Over the last 40, well, really 130 years, the U.S. and Nicaragua have been essentially at military conflict level. A full-on occupation, revolutions, guerrilla warfare. Like, this is a armed conflict scenario that's been going on. Now we're at the longest ever period of peace and prosperity at 19 years since American-backed control was removed. So when you look at it from this historic context, it's not the U.S. is so bad now. It's that the U.S. was so bad. This is in the Nicaragua context. Every country has their own context. So Nicaragua saw a U.S. that was so terrible in the past, and now for the last 19 years, yes, is still on not friendly terms with them. But it is also not in a active war. So if there was going to be a time where you had an animosity towards Americans rather than against America, that would have been then, late 1970s, 1980s, and to a lesser degree, but still from the 90s through 2006. Since 2006, that animosity, that behavior between the countries has changed quite a bit, and they're friendlier than they've been in the past. Not that they're friendly, not that they're cooperative, but they are not at each other's throats the way that they used to be. And so to view this in a very short time frame and say, oh, in the last 5 years, never has the U.S. and Nicaragua been more at odds than today. Okay. But in a historic context, over the last 130 years, what we have now is still part of the really friendly period. So that's an important context. It's just not seen as a big deal here right now, especially compared to events of the past. The second part is Nicaraguans, like most of the world, separate the actions of a government from the actions of its people and do not perceive any amount of ill will and behavior from the U.S. government to be reflected by individual people. So the very idea that you are represented by a foreign country that you do not live in and are not, participating in what they're doing, it would be weird to a Nicaraguan to make that association. Why would they be angry at you? You didn't do it. You're a victim, right? We're, for the most part, Americans who are here are victims of what's going on in the U.S., just like Nicaraguans are. Maybe not to the same extent. Maybe we're not as vulnerable, but that we're victims of similar behavior is absolutely true. So there's a real strong argument for camaraderie versus thinking of it in terms of animosity. Ray 5, hi, what do you think? What do you make of Trump's statement on taking over the Gaza Strip? Well, I have a feeling most of it's bluster. What Trump intends to do, I have no idea. Obviously, that's not going to go over well with pretty much anywhere. Nothing like looking at an ongoing genocide that you've backed as then a chance to seize land from poverty-stricken people. Does that matter? Is Trump in any way out to make America look good, make friends, give it a strong footing for the long haul? No. It really seems that he is working for foreign puppet masters who want to increase foreign trade to the U.S. and put it on a stronger put other countries on a stronger footing. If you were China and you wanted to get one over on the U.S., Trump is exactly how you would do it. He looks like he's an agent working for China. Great. Americans elected him. They're getting what they wanted. So, okay, if that's it, I don't understand why it's wanted, but that's what was voted for. So here you go. The talk with Gaza is already ruffling a lot of feathers in places like Saudi Arabia, places that the U.S. are highly dependent on as partners. So those are weird bridges to be burning, but he's definitely sending places like Saudi Arabia and Jordan into the proverbial arms of Iran, and sending American consumers into the arms of China. So we'll see, but I think it is saber rattling, but in a vein of trying to dismantle America's influence abroad. Patricia says, yeah, pretty sure Big YouTube got my comment. Kikex 2000, hi, I am buying property in Managua from the United States. Should be closing in a few weeks. But now with the political situation, I'm not sure to move there. The political situation, in what sense? You would think the political situation would make you want to move here as quickly as possible. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what political situation you are perceiving. But the only real political situation that would give me pause is the one that could affect flights, and only in a situation where you're super dependent on really quick flights, meaning the local flights from Managua to the U.S. could, and I think fall into likely, will be suspended, and that will make rapid transport. So if you have, say, a house in Managua and your goal was that you needed to get back to the U.S. in 2 hours, like you're going to buy by the airport because you're going to get back in a couple hours. Wow, yeah, losing that airport as a place that can fly directly to the U.S., that's going to really you're going to want to really change your plans. But outside of that, if you don't need to get back quickly, access through neighboring countries is not that hard at all, not that expensive, really. A little. It'll make you be a little bit less likely to go back. But I don't think that... I don't think it's really, for most people, it's just not a very big deal. Outside of that, every political situation is get to Nicaragua as fast as possible. The only thing that's good is getting here quickly. Luke says, my technical difficulties are abated. I am back. Welcome back, Luke. Or welcome, Luke. And were you around? We did tell everyone to go watch your channel. 110 Cupcake. Santorini is shaking. Not in a good way either. What's a good way? Like Santorini's twerking? Wow. Santorini is shaking? I spent some time in Santorini. I used to live, Santorini was just over the horizon. Not a huge fan of Santorini. Oh, earthquake, there it is. Let's go see. More earthquake. As uncertainty grows, bump, 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 state of emergency. Holy cow! A state of emergency has been declared in Santorini after the strongest earthquake was recorded in days of near constant tremors. How was I not aware of this? Which have almost emptied the famous Greek tourist haven of visitors and restaurants. A quake with a magnitude of 5.2 coursed through the Santorini on Wednesday evening, the first to exceed 5.0 since the tremors began. Civil protection, state of emergency until March 3rd. 11,000 people have fled the island. That's crazy. So if you watch my videos, Take Flight with Scott, which I shared just, 30 minutes ago, episode 2, I think, is filmed in Santorini. So you can go see what it's like before all the quakes. I got to send a note to my wife about that. I can't believe that's going on. That is crazy. Wow, interesting. Technical, Santorini. Stuart, European public transportation is just awesome. Scott, your family comes from Switzerland? Grazie. My family background is from Switzerland. We're from Bern. We're from a farm outside of Bern. We're not actually city people. I like big cities, but apparently my family did not. But yeah, both sides are from Bern predominantly. And then obviously no one has a family all from one city. But most of my family is from neighboring provinces. So some are from the Alsace, just over the border in France. Some are from just north in Germany. I do have like one from what's now the Czech Republic. Like one from Norway. But basically in this tight little, before it was Switzerland, it's basically like all the farms that were nearby used to, like, I don't know, take the rowboat over across the river and trade vegetables, and that's how all my old relatives met each other, kind of thing. They did not go far. But yeah, both sides of my family, same city. 110 says, it's a great time to buy property in Managua for sure. If you know how to negotiate, you'll get super good price. Yeah, absolutely. Managua's never got like these huge spikes because it's not a tourism center, but this is definitely a good time. All right, now this name I'm pretty certain I've not seen before because I would remember trying to pronounce this. Ping Campesino Bernard equals Mismo Cochon. Says, so many infrastructure projects right now in Nicaragua. We need those Nicas to come help. Yep, this is where all the work gets done. It's amazing how many things are being done. The highway on the west coast, the highway to the east coast, the new railroad, the new airport. Just everything. Everywhere you go, there's a huge project going on. And they just announced Barrio Jerusalem construction has just started. An entire barrio that's a planned barrio with new low-cost housing, from what I can tell. Looks pretty nice. That, I think, is in eastern Managua. I have not seen it on a map. Guala, good private schools in Nicaragua. I have a middle school kid. So yes, I have good feedback about a number of private schools, including Calasanz, Pureza, the Colegio Central America. There's some I've heard bad things about. Of course, not all is good, but several good options. La Salle, very good, the French school. Quite a few options depending on where you are. Managua has quite a few. Leon has quite a few. Janet has a friend who has a good school out in, I want to say, Huigalpa. Of course, San Juan del Sur is known for having many schools designed for expats. I assume Granada has quite a few, but I don't know them. A lot of the good ones, La Salle and Calasanz and Pureza, for example, all have campuses in different cities, so you can go to those all over the country and still be within the same private system, which is nice. So I'm not an expert on the schools, but I know a lot of people who've been to them, that go to them, and those are some of the good ones that people are happy with. Dale is here, a little late. Hi, all. Hey, Scott. Good to have you here, Dale. I'm struggling with being tired, and I have this light really in my face, and my mouth is just so dry, so I'm having tea, going through I'm already through a liter of water while doing the show. Joseph. Luke says, what if the suspended access to banking with the U.S., a place with no, he says remasses, kicked out of CAFTA, what would that look like? So that was actually a video, I think, were you the one that asked me about the Kafka video? I have it on my notes list to do. It takes some thought. I don't have like a amazing view of it right away. But I think your remasses is actually remittances. Is that a spell check, or did you mean something different that I don't know the word? I'll assume remittances unless you say otherwise. So, one, I don't think kicking Nicaragua out of U.S. banking is a likely thing. The U.S. knows better than to take a country that is local, that has a lot of access to allies, and cut it off from banking. Because you can do a lot of damage with that, absolutely. Nicaragua would suffer big time, but Nicaragua would also turn around and become the ultimate money laundering location for the United States. Nicaragua would be like, okay, all banking is opaque here. Welcome to the money laundering hub. And the U.S. would have no visibility into global markets, right? That would be crazy dangerous for the U.S. So they count on people not being able to move money like that and creating a completely blind major country in the region that's transferring money all over the place. That would not be something that they want to experience. That would significantly hinder many of the efforts that they have into visibility. So I find that very unlikely. I think the U.S. would suffer disproportionately for that. They would do a ton of damage to Nicaragua, but the U.S. would really damage their reputation. And even watching Rubio talk today, he didn't have one negative thing to say. He put on a negative tone and spoke about Nicaragua, but if you watch the video, not one thing he said was negative. They were all things that he just said in a negative tone, but that was it. So going out and doing something dramatic like breaking international treaties over something they can't articulate is risky. Those things do carry ramifications for the United States. So I don't think it's likely. But let's just imagine that they did, right? Nicaragua is allied with the BRICS countries and would likely retain banking into those countries. If those countries decided that they were going to build their own banking infrastructure, they could do so at the drop of a hat. They have the ability to do so very, very quickly. Nicaragua would certainly lose a bunch of its commerce. A lot of things would grind to a near halt, but a lot of other things would start to ramp up, especially if they were leaving Kafka. They weren't able to go honor the trade agreements that are supposed to be in place. This would just drive Nicaragua into the arms of China. If you were to go to Bolivia, and which is obviously farther from the U.S., but if you spend time in Bolivia, it takes no time at all to realize that everything in Bolivia is not coming from the U.S. They have essentially no U.S. supply chain. Well, Nicaragua can pretty much get everything it needs from China, and it has direct access to them. So workarounds to a Kafka kickout are already in place. Nicaragua would simply shut the U.S. off from access to sugar and rum and tobacco and chocolate and coffee and start shipping those things directly to China instead. In the long run, they risk that it actually makes Nicaragua stronger and a close ally with China when currently they're just really nice friends. I do think the U.S. could do quite a bit of damage to Nicaragua with these moves, but I'm pretty sure Nicaragua would do even more damage to the U.S. So I don't think it's something that the U.S. wants, and I think that they know that they would look incredibly foolish to do it. Are there any American banks in Nicaragua? There are not. The only one that was ever here, ever. The only one here in as long as I've ever known is Citi, and they pulled out 12 years ago. Aren't they mostly South American? I'm not aware of a single South American bank here in the country. Avance is Nicaraguan for sure. Lafice, I think, is Nicaraguan. I'm gonna look that up, but yes, they are Nicaraguan. BAC was Nicaraguan, but moved their headquarters to Costa Rica. Banpro is Nicaraguan, and then Fancosa is the only one I don't know. And there might be ones I've never heard of, but I've never seen a South American bank in the country. Oh, there's BDF, but I think they're Nicaraguan as well. There's one called Fincosa, and I don't even know their website. I don't know anything about them. And I think the list of banks in Nicaragua website doesn't even list them because it's so long out of date. No, there it is. Oh, Banco Ficosa is Honduran. That's the one. I didn't know. And it's, I think, out on the East Coast, Banco Atlantida, I think they operate still, but I'm not sure. But it's only out on the coast. No, I think they're 100% Central American here. Edgar says, Señor NK, pegue usted. Was he asking, what am I doing? I'm doing the live stream. That's like slang for that. I'm doing this. I must misunderstand that question. It could be what do you think, depending on how it's spelled. What do I think about? What do I think about what? We have 65 people watching right now. Wow. Kikex, did you have a response as to what aspect of things you're concerned about with your property? Not sure how to answer without more information. What do I do for a living? I just made that video today. Literally, it's sitting on the camera waiting to upload. Thank you, Roberto. So I have my own consulting firm. I've had it for 26 years. We do banking systems. We do government management systems. We do software for veterinary clinics and dentists. And we do IT support. So companies, everyone from enormous companies and governments down to small businesses, just a couple employees. We provide either IT consulting. Some of the world's biggest companies come to us for expertise that they can't have in-house. And we're talking some of the world's biggest companies come to us when they need expertise beyond what they're able to provide on their own. But we also do entire IT departments for more moderate-sized companies down to very small. We're a phone company, so we have our own phone products. So we do a lot. Our own web hosting and telephones and web design and you name it. And we're a company builder, so other companies can come to us and be like, hey, we want to have a business consultancy. We want full IT outsourcing. We want all these different things. We want to be an MSP. We want to be like this. We want these technologies. They can come to us and just say, I want to be this. This is the company I want to be. I'll provide customers, salespeople, account managers who go out and shake hands and kiss babies. I'll do the soft stuff, but I need someone to make all the actual work happen. That's what we do. So if any of you are interested in starting an MSP, a managed service provider, as an example, and this is kind of a real thing. Oh, we're up to 72 people now. Holy cow, 80. If any of you wanted to start an MSP, a managed service provider, you could. And I mean, literally today, go out, incorporate a company, come up with a cool name, all Kansas MSP, and register that. And you could come to us and say, okay, we own this domain, all Kansas MSP. We have nothing else, but here's the kind of company we want to be. We can take that information and build that company in generally under a day. So this is like an immediate thing. You could be like, I have a customer that just called us for service. We're going to stall them on their first phone call because we need to go from zero to functional company over the next 24 hours. We could do that. And we could set you up with call centers. We could set you up with payment systems. We could set you up with a website, every single thing. You could look like a full functional company. And you would be with all the resources of a top company instantly. And then you can go back to your potential customers and be like, see, we have all this infrastructure. We're ready to service you right now and provide those services. So that's actually a path, if you have any potential customers, that you could actually create yourself a revenue for moving to Nicaragua by simply coming up with local customers, local to wherever you're from or local to wherever you grew up or whatever, and then not have to do a thing. Just every so often call them on the phone, make sure things are good, keep them happy. You don't have to know what an MSP is. You don't have to do any of the work. You don't have to buy a thing, and you don't have to put in a bunch of upfront money. We handle everything, all the staffing, everything. So that's a really cool aspect of the company, that companies will come to us. I had a call today, right? A company in Ohio is like, ooh, I do want to be this full MSP, and I have a one-person business with no technical people, but he has access to a market. And he's like, wow, all I have to do is decide to do this, and I have a full MSP that can do a million things, including make websites, host websites, set it, everything, which is really cool. So that's my main job. And then I've also written a book, and I do some little side projects from time to time, but that is the bulk of it. And then, of course, this doesn't really make money, but I'm a hotel and restaurant investor here in Nicaragua. Luke says, went to BandPro today looking for an ATM per Google Map. ATM was drive-through only, 50 plus customers waiting for a teller. I've heard about it, now I've witnessed it. That is weird. Luke, where was that? And a fan. Luke says, how much is the setup on map? MSP. How much is the setup on MSP? Man, my eyes are getting old. There's really no cost to it because it depends if you have like things that you really need that are a part of the upfront. But generally, we're able to front all of the cost for spin up, depending on how you're going to use it. If you want to have it fully staffed and you want people sitting around in call centers and this would be crazy. But what if you're like, I want 20 people sitting in a room together. I want to be able to walk in and see everything in a room and be able to walk around. I don't even care if I have customers. That's going to cost a bit of money. It's not going to be crazy. Like we are specialists in keeping those costs down. But it's not going to be free either, because you're going to have to hire those people, commit to keeping them for a while, get them desks, get them computers, hook them up. There's a lot of this isn't necessary to do our job kind of stuff that would be going into that, and that would be a lot more costly. But if you're looking for, sorry, I've got just an itch in my eye. You're just looking for the work to be done, and you're like, okay, excuse me, this is going to be a tough night. I've got a couple of customers. They're interested in getting started. I don't need much. Then we can generally work out a plan where we're making revenue directly off of the work being done for the customers, rather than requiring you to front all the cost for that, so that you don't make as much money because we're being paid as we go, but you're not taking on risk for it. All you have to do is go out and find the customers, because things like phones and computers, in most cases, we're already providing to our employees. So these are not extras that have to be supplied for your project. But if you need us to immediately hire new people or whatever, and we have to provide them with technology to do their job and so forth, then there can be costs. So in some cases, costs can exist, but it's not necessarily very much, and it's not necessarily needed. Typically, you would start as lean as possible with possibly no upfront in some cases, and then potentially switch to other models later once you started growing. 110 says, I'm from Nicaragua. I'm a fan. I'm from Nicaragua. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Scott Challenger says, that sounds really cool. Thanks, I'll look into it. I'm reading about data science right now, but also just looking for the most basic remote work. I just ordered lots of books about Nicaragua. Awesome. Well, welcome to the adventure. Teakanki says, are you CIA? People are asking what you do for a living. It's funny that people think I'm CIA. Like, I think if I was CIA, I'd have a lot more normal cover. Do I do marketing campaigns? We can do marketing campaigns, absolutely. It's not a bedrock of our business, but we certainly do. And we have a cool website for we actually market it as a separate arm of the business, just because people tend to like marketing more than, obviously, if you guys want service, just email me. But that's our cool website for our marketing department. NK Sigas Mahe. Oh, my bad. The BAC Credomatic east of Banpro. That was your mistake. You should have just gone to the Banpro. I've got too many things open. There we go. So that's my core job. And then here I do investments in the properties here, in hotels and stuff. And we would really like to be. It's true. If I was CIA, I'd be in San Juan del Sur. There's nothing to spy on up here. I really like doing the hotels here, so it's cool that we have the properties and get to do that. Like, it's just a lot of fun, and it would be really nice if those were profitable and we could, actually, live off of that. Is very cool, but that's unlikely, right? Just not something that we're anticipating is going to happen. We really are pretty sure we're just always going to be living off of our U.S. businesses. It's just reality, right? It's very difficult to work around that, and that's why I put in the videos, like, people need to be ready for the fact that generally your revenue is going to have to come from outside, and you're going to have to spend money in Nicaragua but make money abroad. Joseph says, how's the trucking industry? So the actual trucking industry is not bad. There's a lot of trucks going up and down the country all the time. It's a rough life because you got to sleep in your truck for days. Generally, it's all international. You're moving between a lot of countries. So there's a lot of hoops to jump through, a lot of distance, and no one gets hotels in it. Would I be able to get a job in trucking? I'm from California. No, you would absolutely not be able to get a job in trucking, nor would you want a job in trucking. I understand that if your career is trucking, that it's very difficult to just jump into anything. But a truck driver here might make $2 an hour. I'm guessing a little bit, but hardly anything. You're going to be sleeping on the road for 5 days, and I mean sleeping on the road, right? Not in a hotel. All of your time is spent sitting at borders. The pay is very low. It is a very rough job. There's no way that they're going to let you do it, but it shouldn't matter. The rule is always going to be no job in Nicaragua is ever going to be desirable for anyone from North America. The potential incomes in North America for the worst job you could do are so high compared to the low incomes for the best job you could do in Nicaragua. There will always be some job you can do in North America that you will enjoy just as much as or better for many times the pay. And if it isn't about the pay, then why are you even looking for a job? Obviously, right? Jobs are about pay. That is the function of them. Luke says, well, I won't be recording content in the hotel after 5 p.m. The music at Family Friendly Hotel is bumping. That is definitely the case. It is very hard to record in so many places because of that. I'm constantly on the search for some place to be able to film. Edgar says, ¿Por qué te gusta Nicaragua? I mean, for a lot of reasons, right? Nicaragua is it's such a beautiful country with such a beautiful culture. People are so nice, and the country is so welcoming. Logistically, Nicaragua makes a lot of sense for us, right? Because it's close, it's the right time zone, it's very safe, it's very cheap. But being here for a while, it's every day I wake up and I'm like, I am so thankful for living in Nicaragua. I'm so thankful for being able to be here. And so thankful that I get to raise my kids here, right? There's other places that I would feel that way too. That's not completely limited to Nicaragua, but it really tells me something. When I lived in the United States, every day we would wake up and be like, what do we have to do to leave? And in Nicaragua, it's what can we do to stay? How do we celebrate being Nicaraguan today? And now that we've been here, right, getting to know the people and how welcoming and how caring and how safe and how energetic and happy and full of life Nicaragua is. And when they have spent so much time, so much history being treated so badly from the outside, it's amazing to see a country responding so positively, and the people, just everyone you meet, is so positive and happy, and it's a different world, right? People are not scared of their shadows and scared of their neighbors and scared of the taxi cabs and scared of the dogs, and coming from North America where fear is such a prevalent aspect of just normal everyday life, it is so happy to be in a place like Nicaragua. I don't like the heat. I would like it if the whole country was air conditioned a bit more, but it's a minor price to pay for being able to live in a place that just makes us so happy. Have I been to Club Phoenix? I've not. I don't know what it is or where it is, so I don't know the name. Roberto says, now that you talk about trucking, I was talking about a marketing campaign to get direct shippers in the U.S. A marketing campaign to get direct shippers in the U.S. to ship to where? Edgar E. Phoenix. He says, yep, that's exactly what a CIA agent would say. Bum, bum, bum. The plot thickens. I'm going to look up Club Phoenix on a map and see if I can figure out something about it. E. Aljonas. Farmacia, nightclub in Cristo Rey, Managua. That's got to be it. Where is that? At the Rotunda Santo Domingo. Oh. Okay, so it is... All right. Okay. No, I've definitely not been to Club Phoenix. I've driven past, obviously. ¿Cuál te gusta más, el Jonas or el Good Time? I'm not sure I understand. Edgar, are you asking me? Because I haven't been to Phoenix, or I haven't been to Jonas or Good Time, so I can't. I don't know. Scott Challenger says, were the samosas so terrible? They were so terrible, yes. Yeah, 70 roughly. It wasn't all samosas. It's more like 45 years of the samosas, 70 years total of more or less dictatorial regime. And when they talk about dictatorial in the 1970s, it was the worst, right? The scariest thing is when it's a foreign dictator, someone who's not representing the country in any way. There's dictators who've been really, really good for their own countries. Of course, other countries always dislike people that are good for their own countries, so you get a lot of hate. But like Gaddafi in Libya kept a country that is generally a collection of warlords at peace for a large number of years and completed some really critical human works projects like building underwater aqueduct systems and some really important things that the U.S. were not able to do during the same time period as people. And as soon as he was assassinated, the country fell apart. And it really showed that he was able to do great things in a under conditions that other people were able to do nothing. So was he a dictator? Yes. Would he admit to being one? Yes. Would he take great pride in it? Yes, because he was a dictator for the purpose of trying to take care of his people. The worst, because he was one of the people, right? He came up and was, made his life doing those things. The samosas here in, and just to be clear, Scott, I assume you mean the dictator. The way you spelled it is technically the dictator. The way you spelled it is technically the pastry from India, but I think I know what you mean. Those are not bad. Those are delicious. Was a U.S. puppet put onto put into power here with active military from the U.S. on the ground to keep him in place, and he acted as a strongman, torturing and murdering people to make sure that Nicaragua never had sovereignty and was purely an unfettered playground for American business. And it's not just that the samosas were so terrible for Nicaraguans, and clearly no one else can possibly claim equal destruction under samosa. It would be like, asking the Spanish if Hitler was terrible. Well, yes, but nothing compared to how terrible he was to the Jews, right? But it doesn't mean he wasn't terrible to other people. And samosa was also terrible to the United States, to Americans, right? Americans, every single American was a victim of the samosa regime as well, just not to the degree of Nicaraguans. Nicaraguans feared for their lives and very often lost their loved ones to horrendous torture. But Americans also lost their freedom of speech and freedom of the press under Somoza. Of course, other situations also caused that to happen. But Somoza was a direct enemy of the American public, that he worked in conjunction with the United States government who was also an enemy of the American people, acting as, keeping the media from being able to report what was going on, waging wars that were illegal, violating the Constitution, using secret methods and media control to keep the U.S. populace from being able to exert democratic voice in government. Somoza would be, to any person in the United States, a non-domestic terrorist in U.S. terms, let alone in Nicaraguan terms. Somoza and Jimmy Carter directly had American journalists assassinated on the streets, executed, put on their knees, shot in the back of the head on live U.S. television. They didn't know the cameras were rolling. That's what ended the war. But Americans were being told a lot of lies about what their military and what their money and what the CIA was doing overseas. And of course, were very averse to war because we had just come out of Vietnam and we had lost in Vietnam. And one of the reasons that Americans were so angry about Vietnam is that we had been told that we were waging a war for one purpose, and that turned out not to be the purpose. And we were told that we were doing better than we were, and everything was a lie. And we turned out that we didn't have the media and the democratic controls in place that are necessary for a republic. And so the people felt betrayed because they were by their government. And when the U.S. came into force in Nicaragua, once Nicaragua started to, and this is my completely personal opinion, but I think that Vietnam being able to throw off the shackles of colonialism so violently, so powerfully, gave Nicaragua a lot of encouragement that not only if Vietnam could do it, why couldn't Nicaragua? Of course, Vietnam being massively larger is one reason, and having an ally that backed them up. But Nicaragua had been under the U.S. thumb for so long and was so hurt by it that I think seeing that the U.S. had lost yet another foreign war, they had lost Korea not that long before, it really gave a lot of encouragement, and Nicaragua suddenly gave a push for a couple years and came out with establishing their sovereignty and getting the Somozas out. You can tell from 46 years of unification since then just how bad Somoza had to have been for his legacy to still unify Nicaraguans against the terror threat of outside influence. The fear that an outside actor will attempt to put someone over Nicaragua once again and do such terrible things is real. People have a real reason to fear that and feel real fear about that, that it could somehow become a threat again. Now, of course, they also take great action to make sure it doesn't become a threat. So it's not like people sit around worrying every day that it could happen, because such great lengths are taken to ensure that it doesn't. But those lengths must be taken because the possibility exists, and the knowledge that letting the wheels come off the wagon, to use a very American expression, to allow a lapse in national judgment to say, oh, was the time of the dictator really that bad? Making that mistake could mean generations of oppression, generations of effective enslavement. For a very real look at it, right? One of the reasons that Nicaragua identifies or empathizes so strongly with Gaza today is because Gaza has functioned since 1945 as an open-door concentration camp. Not since 45, anyway, for a long time. Has functioned as an outdoor concentration camp. Nicaragua effectively was also, for 70 years, an open, very large concentration camp over which they had no control, and generations were born within the camp for all intents and purposes. Generation after generation, born, and in some cases, born and died and raised their children all under imprisonment. And so when it's that bad, the fear, the memory become much more endemic to this population, and we see it. So yes, the samosas were that bad, and you still see it's been 46 years. So we are much farther from samosa now in Nicaragua than we were from Hitler when I was born, and that was still pretty far. But we didn't live under see that was because of World War II. See that was because of World War II. But here, at every turn, you're like, why is this building like this? Why is this memorial here? Why is this thing here? And it's like, because we can't forget. We can't take that risk. And it's very, very palpable. And it's a powerful thing, living under those conditions and being reminded every day that freedom isn't free, and it is a fight that happens every day. Taikanki, I don't know how to pronounce this. Yeah, just kidding, man. Great channel. I really enjoy your content. And if you are indeed CIA, who cares? You're a great guy. I know I'll meet you in person one day. Hopefully not for a hit this time. Luke says, I worked for Porter Goss, Florida congressman, who was a former CIA spook on Sanibel Island, Florida. Ran the CIA decades later for like a month to fall on a sword for an unknown cause. Well, that sucks. John Tanzi, how can I contact you directly? So just real quick, before I even look at the rest of the things he said, email is in the show notes, scott@latinamericanliving.com. And there is a WhatsApp Expats group, which right now is super busy and I'm not looking at it, so who knows how many messages I've missed. But that is, people talk to me all day on there. Plus, there is the Latin American Living communities on Nica Habla. All the links are in the show notes. You can reach me on any of those. He says, I live here on Ometepe Island and have a few questions for you. I like your attitude towards this beautiful country. Thanks, John. And Ometepe is awesome. What part of Ometepe are you on? 110 says, I'm a big fan. I watch you almost every day. Love your content. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I did get spotted. I want to point out, it's always fun. I mean, I get spotted every few days, but sometimes it's like, oh, hey, I've seen your stuff. And sometimes I was sitting in Barbaro, and the place is like empty. It was just me and the kids, and it was just the family. And maybe one other table. And then these two guys, middle-aged, a little bit younger than me, well, probably a lot younger than me, but still middle-aged, come in the door. And I turned my head just enough, and one of the guys looked at me. And there was just that little bit of eye contact, but not recognition. And then I saw him look down at his phone and start looking for something. And I turn around to my wife and I'm like, I just got identified. But he's not 100% sure, so he's checking his phone to see if it's really me. But he knows he's in Nicaragua, so what are the chances it's not me? It must be me. And he's standing there in the doorway for a bit looking at his phone. And I look at him and he's kind of, every so often he looks up and I'm like, he's definitely looking at pictures of me. And then he walked over and he's like, hey, and he introduced himself and his brother. And they're like, we watch your show sometimes and we really appreciate it. It was just really funny. He's like, we don't live here. We were just visiting family. And I'm like, wait, that's that guy. ¿Cómo sabes tanto de la historia de Nicaragua? I'm going to do this out of order because I read it out of order. Edgar, I'm kind of a historian, always been a history buff, but living here in Nicaragua, obviously, it's something that let's back up. I grew up in the United States during the Somoza occupation and during the Iran-Contra war, as we call it. And so a lot of the history is actually things that I was very aware of. I was a child, but this was every day on the news for us. I grew up with Nicaragua being the place where the American government betrayed the people. That was driven home. If you're my age and watched the news when you were young, that was really, really clear that the American public had been truly betrayed, and that our institutions were failing us. And we weren't angry with Nicaragua. We, as the people, were identifying with Nicaragua that, the bit stream went way down. Let's see if this keeps working. That we had together been manipulated and betrayed by the American government and the CIA. And we're going to wait a second because there's lag. something has happened. I'm just going to hang for a second as there is lag. I can definitely see the lag. I see some video that makes it seem like it's working. Let me know if we are doing better. I'm going to open OBS and see if we're getting errors there. It's got its warning, but I'm not used to all of its reports to know how it's doing. 10.3% dropped frames. Ooh, we got a lot of people, though. All right, and now, how are we looking? Looks good now. Okay, I'm going to start talking again. Give me feedback as we can. Yes, my errors seem to have cleared. It was just a momentary thing. Boy, when I look at the straight up monitor with the image right out of the Streamer X, I love how it looks. When I see it on YouTube, it's like paler. It's not quite. It still looks good, but when I see it on this, it's like, oh, that looks good. That's just a solid image. All right, coming back to why do I... So his question was, why do I know so much of the history? So I've always been a history buff. I've lived here for 10 years. I lived through Nicaraguan history being in a major part of my childhood. Just I happen to be that age. I did take Latin American studies in high school. That did encourage me to study more of the region, but I study a lot of European history. I can teach European history. I don't have to prepare. My kids, I homeschool my kids. They come to me and they're like, we want to know, name the topic. And we'll spend 2 hours going into a dissertation on whatever thing. So I can talk on a lot of subjects, on a lot of history. That I live in Nicaragua and you're asking me questions about Nicaragua is kind of random in reality. I also run the channel Latin American History, right? So, which is a newer channel, but these are things that I care about. So, pretty aware. And I live here in the first city of revolution, right? So, I know people firsthand who were involved in the war. I've been asked to do a documentary actually on the war. And I know people here from the Contra War, and it's locations and firsthand living through it and being in the skeletons of that war. It's all around you, and it's if you're going to take an interest in it, it is there, right? And the torture center for Somoza is walking distance from my house. I have literally walked up the mountain to it from the house. We did it when I did the video on it. I didn't walk all the way from the house at that time, but I walked from pretty close to the house all the way up to there on it. So it's. I take the history, I think history is a very important thing, and I enjoy it. So being here, I want to know it, but I also want my kids to know it, right? My kids are a part of this place, and more so than, and don't get me wrong, if you want to talk about American history for the next 8 hours straight, I can give you a similar talk on any aspect of American history you want, pretty much. He deleted what he asked, but that's what I was looking for. But being here and really being in a position to kind of and the Nicaraguans are going to be like, okay, we appreciate you, but it's not quite true. But considering myself kind of a Nicaraguan by adoption, obviously, is it's an important thing, right? Nicaragua to me represents a very important thing, right? In the same way, so I'm a dog person, right? One of the reasons that dogs love you so unconditionally is because they're adopted. They understand the concept that they didn't have a family, and now they do, and you become their pack, and it becomes this very tight bond because adoption is an important thing because it's optional, and it's meaningful because of that, and so I have a very close bond with my dogs. That's one thing, but also I feel. And this is one of the reasons that I'm passionate about being an expat is because when you're whatever country you're born in, if you stay there, it's kind of happenstance. Maybe it's the right country for you and you just happen to be born there, sure. But more likely it's where you were born and you just didn't get a chance to go somewhere else, or you didn't take the opportunity to go somewhere else. But as someone who's born in one place, and it was, we can say a lot of negative things about it, but the reality is that being born in the United States gives you an awful lot of advantages and an awful lot of good things, and there's a lot of nice things that just come from getting that spot in life. And so it's not like I'm coming from a place that I have to flee because it was so terrible throughout my life. It's not like that. But finding a place like Nicaragua that welcomes me and my family, that has really embraced us as family, as we feel like Nicaragua wants us to be here and enables us to be here and adopts us as valuable residents that they care about and that they want to see succeed at our level, and want to see us integrate and want to see us participate and want to see us happy as well. That feels like kind of a national level adoption, and I'm truly grateful for that, and I care deeply about the people here in the country, and feel very, very blessed to have the opportunity to be within appropriate scope considered part of that story and part of that family. And so that is a huge impetus for wanting to have and share that history and that story, beyond it just being an interesting thing to understand the context of the place that you're in. How better to enjoy culture and to understand everything you see. And it is also true that if you live in Nicaragua, the amount that relatively recent history is truly alive today is pretty extensive. And so if you want to participate, or you want to get more out of your experience in Nicaragua, understanding what those things are, understanding what we're going to have the 4619 this year, and if me saying we're having the 4619 doesn't instantly tell you what that is, and you don't go, oh yeah, it's the 4619 this year, then there's an aspect of Nicaraguan culture you don't know yet. And you don't need to know that when you first get here, but after you've been here for 1 or 2 years, and someone's like, yep, I'm heading to the 4619, you want to hop in the truck and go? You should know exactly what that is. And it's just you part of the place, right? Edgar did ask another question, and I did read it, and I no longer remember what it was because I'm old and I get distracted. So unfortunately, I can't answer it, but he did delete it, so we'll assume he didn't want to know. That was pre-lag. Kanki says, Sandino is regarded as such a great hero. I'm not sure if this is a question or a statement. I think they meant to say, or maybe I have to read it differently. Sandino is regarded as such a great hero, and just leave out the second is, because he actually kicked the USA out before Vietnam did. They actually learned from Sandino. To a small degree, that's true. I think Sandino was certainly active long before Vietnam truly stood up for themselves. He was, I'm pretty sure, younger than Ho Chi Minh. They were contemporaries fighting for their countries under similar conditions. But Sandino is certainly is he's the George Washington essentially of Nicaragua spiritually. Anyway, the history plays out very differently, but the amount that Sandino actually managed to get the U.S. out was very little. It had momentary benefits, but Sandino's real contribution, in my opinion, to Nicaraguan history and culture is because he was willing to give everything in the face of insane odds, and did so in a way that really encouraged others to believe that his vision was significant enough to work. And his actual military prowess, well, he had some. He was a general, right? He worked his way up. Was far secondary to his spiritual leadership that he may never have been aware of, because he died quite young. I think if you were to have Sandino show up in Nicaragua today, he would truly struggle to understand why he's considered so important. I don't think he understood in his lifetime what he was doing. I don't mean that from a he didn't know what he was doing standpoint. I don't think he understood the utter significance that his legacy would provide and how that would inspire a generation later, or 2 generations later almost, to invoke his name and his legacy in defending and finally establishing true sovereignty for the homeland. I think that's how I view it. I mean, certainly great guy who did great things, but really kicking out the U.S., it was more of managing to establish a slight pause in an otherwise very long engagement. Little Roundhouse, Sarasota, says Americans should give 3% of their paychecks to rebuild Gaza. Yep. Wouldn't that be nice? Instead, they give 8% of their paychecks to tear it down. Edwin says, I'm back, then deletes a message. Joseph says, how is Matagalpa? It's fantastic. It's my favorite city here, honestly. I mean, not everyone has the same things they like about cities, so you may not like it like I do, but it's got much more of an urban vibe. So if you're not a long-term watcher, I tend to prefer urban environments. I like big cities that feel like big cities. I like public transportation and walking from neighborhood to neighborhood with lots of coffee shops and little curio shops and cool little quirky restaurants, things that are very difficult to do in most of Nicaragua because we don't have the population density. Those are, I love that Nicaragua is so rural, so agrarian. Some of that's really cool. I grew up on a farm, so I really appreciate some of that stuff. But I also kind of, I used to live in New York City. I've lived in Dallas. I've worked in London. I've worked in Toronto. I grew up with Toronto as my neighboring city. I was there all the time. I've worked in some other. I used to work in San Francisco, and big cities are a thing that I like. If you're like, where you want to live, I'd be like, I don't know. I'm just gonna pick, Guate, Rome, Madrid. If it was just a city, like where would I want to teleport into? I like those big cities. I like the things that they offer. That's why when we vacation, most of the time we're at big cities. We were just in Buenos Aires recently, Mexico City not too long ago. So Matagalpa, that was a long aside. Matagalpa has so much more of an urbane feeling than Leon, but to me, it's more urbane than Managua. So let that sink in for a second. It's got a denser downtown, much smaller, right? But Managua doesn't even have a downtown. Where would it be? I don't even know what intersection you want to consider downtown. Like the Plaza Nicaragua, that is the epicenter of the city, yet it's anything but a downtown. So who knows? But the cathedral in Matagalpa does feel like a downtown. You've got a bunch of cool restaurants and really nice coffee shops and a mall and some neat restaurants and some street food and some stuff and vendors and activity and some late night crime to make it feel like a real city. And like all of that is going on in Matagalpa while still being very affordable and approachable and just a really cool place. And the weather is really good, especially if you've lived in Managua or especially Leon or even more especially Chinandega and El Viejo. For those who don't know, Satan was born in El Viejo and he died in Chinandega, or vice versa. That's the saying. And if you're coming from any of these places, you go up to Matagalpa, it's just like this cool, relaxing vacation. It's like, wow, this weather is so good. Now, if you're coming from the States and it's winter, you're gonna be like, it's just hot like the rest of Nicaragua. I don't know what you're talking about. But if you come from here and go up there, it is so fresh and relaxing, and it's just everything's a different vibe. The buildings are built differently, the streets go differently, the pace of life is different. Everything feels different, and it's a different traditional population demographic zone than down here. So there's a lot of like deep-seated little different bits of like, oh, we cook this a little bit differently. We dress a little bit differently. People look a little bit different, and it's a really cool city with its own culture and zone, and a lot of like cool villages around it. And they're like the road going to Jinotega is so cool, and the views are so amazing. And I love cities with the twinkling lights all up above you and below you and all over. I'm very much enamored with Matagalpa. I like it a lot, and always have from the very first time I went there 10 years ago. Luke says, my last supervisor with the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs was actually one of Ollie North's men in the 80s. Yes, he was a jerk who bragged as a supervisor for having a clinical lack of empathy. That's wonderful. That's pretty much, yep. They were all just domestic terrorists who hated America and Americans and would do whatever they could to destroy it, and were willing to destroy Nicaragua in the process to damage America as much as they could. They were truly terrible people. They had no upside. They had no one they were helping. They just hurt people. It was awful. Desert Sunset says it's good. I think that's the video's back. Scott says a little lag, but not too bad on my end. So what do you think the Trump administration means for us considering moving to Nicaragua? I mean, Trump doesn't want you to do anything that doesn't benefit Trump. So, honestly, I think overall, Trump has a very strong affinity for expats. He pushes agendas that benefit expats. We have to. You can't look at what Trump says and say, here's what he means. You have to look at what Trump does and say, what did he mean? Right? You have to read back. Oh, we're gonna have lag again. But it's not awful lag, so I just realized that my messages up there are no good. There we go. I think I'm safe to keep talking. So reading back Trump and his actions to say what did he want from these actions, he tends to really want emigration, right? First of all, they're deporting people. So that's not something you do if you want more people. That's something you do when you want less people. So let's assume he wants less people. That would be the logical thing. And I understand not every politician is logical, so you have to be careful. But short of some emotional response that we don't know about, logically, he is seeking, and the administration is seeking, a depopulation of America. And one of the things that people have said is that America is overpopulated. This is not the case. That is not at all what's happening, but there is a fairly strong belief and push that America should reduce the number of people it has, not increase. So one way you do that you can force that, is getting rid of people that are only there at the whim of the government, like expats. So expats are being encouraged to go back home, possibly encouraged at the end of Zapper. But on the other hand, those of us who are Americans, and there's no right to push us out, but the government can exercise its rights to encourage us to move out, and they can do that by making America less pleasant. So that tactic's happening, but also, more importantly, they can incentivize you through a pull mechanism to go somewhere else. So the most administrations do this to some degree. They want to take people who are not entirely super excited about living in America and encourage them to go, right? This is good kind of for everyone. The government wants them gone and they wanted to leave. Let's make sure they can do this, right? So it's a win for everybody. Trump has upped that or promises to up that from previous administrations and kind of wants to encourage more people to leave. Maybe not double, but 50% more, something like that. So that they tune the tax code and things like that to encourage people to leave. So that is what we're seeing. And so you kind of have to start from a position of the United States is taking the official position, or semi-official, as official as you can reasonably be, that overall it would behoove everyone to leave. And they know that only 1-2% are ever going to leave. They can say everyone, and they know they're only getting a few. So that seems to be official. So by moving out, you're doing what Trump wants, as far as we can tell. And he's willing to give you big incentives for it. So it's you're getting benefits for making him happy. And I say him, he really means the government. And so yeah, it's a tempting thing to identify everything with a popular leader. And certainly many aspects of the government, especially now and under Trump, are direct reflections of his personal agendas. But it's also important to remember that the government is vast, and what we see at the end of the day is a cumulative effect of many aspects of government coming together. Now, does the government like Nicaragua? No, it does not. Does that mean that they're going to go out of their way to punish Americans who choose Nicaragua? No, it does not. And traditionally they have not. And does it imply that they want to? We don't know if they want to. What we do know is that trying to do so risks a lot of harm to themselves. So it's a kind of thing you want to calculate carefully as a government. At what point do you want to create enemies with very real axes to grind from your own people, right? And that is nearly any government who has tried to do something like eliminate Social Security generally faces an unprecedented backlash. And it sounds like the kind of thing like, I can get rid of this, right? No one's going to notice. They don't really expect to live off of this. And then they do that, and then suddenly you have even 20-year-olds who are like, I was planning on living off of that, and they're pretty incensed. And you have a lot of people who end up with nothing to lose because they're about to starve to death, and they're willing to do drastic things. And so, like taking away critical life-saving or life support features from the system, going after people who are living in a certain country brings on a lot of risks, and people who are in other countries carry an outsized they swing an outsized stick, right? They have the potential to do more harm to the U.S. than a typical worker, right? A typical worker in the United States, the U.S. can really control them. They can control the media, they can silence them, they can take away their social media, they can close their bank accounts, they can do all kinds of things. But a person who's living abroad, they can still annoy them, but for the most part, they can't reach them. Not without great risk and cost. And so because of that, foreigners who are much more out of reach, or foreign living non-resident Americans, carry often in those cases a potential very personal reason to do things in their own interest rather than aiding the United States in harming them. And so it tends to be a group you don't want to poke that bear because an organized group of expats really does function as a potentially dangerous thing for the United States. And there's no reason for them to really do that. Now, what if the United States does just clamp down on Nicaragua and is like, we don't care how much damage this is going to do to the United States. We are going to just do damage until Americans are impacted. Possible, for sure. Then this could happen anywhere, right? Looking at Nicaragua as a potential risk isn't completely out of line, but it's It's not as meaningful as it seems. The United States is very capricious. They could end up completely at random having an argument with the Dominican Republic tomorrow and about to issue sanctions against the Dominican Republic. And then accidentally they get into an argument with the Sudan. They forget why they were angry or who they were angry with, and they end up sanctioning Sudan, all because Nicaragua did something and they just got confused, because that's how the government seems to work. You also have a lot of flexibility. Right, so this is an important thing, right? So let's say you move to Nicaragua, you establish yourself here, and I understand there are some people that this would be a big deal for, but for most of my audience, almost all but one or two of you, you move to Nicaragua, you establish a life, you're here, you're me, right? I'm all in, I own businesses, I do all kinds of things, right? I am here in Nicaragua, it is a big deal. The United States says, we are going to take away your passports. We're going to do all kinds of damage. We're not even going to worry about what's legal or not. We're out to get you if you're in Nicaragua. So first of all, this is not going to last, right? It can't. Like, those kinds of things do not hold on for a long time, even in the face of a suspended government and a full-on dictator, if that is to happen, which an awful lot of, the majority of Americans want, right? And that's not always the worst thing, right? Gaddafi was good, so it can happen. But then again, Germany didn't have the greatest experience with it, so your mileage may vary. But it can be a good thing. So there's reasons why people potentially want it. But if that was to happen, we would just get in the car, drive to Honduras. We'll be there in an hour and 50 minutes, right? And that's not the end of the world. Honduras is a nice country. 3 more hours we're in El Salvador. That's a nice country. Few more hours we're in Guatemala. That's a nice country. Many hours more we're in Mexico, also a nice country, but now you're getting crazy. Some of you might be interested in Belize, not that much farther away. Good drive, for sure. A lot of people, they're like, I don't care about the cost. I just want something that's kind of more feeling like Nicaragua, and they just go to Costa Rica. Fine. And a lot of people will be like, Panama's not that far, and Scott really like that. I'm going to go check that out. Great. All these options, those are the ones you can get to by car. You're not getting in a plane. You might just take a bus. Mexico, you can't do it. Everyone but Mexico and Belize, you can do on a direct bus, and those you have to take a secondary bus. That's it. You can take buses. You can drive yourself. You could get flights to most places. And this is just without going past the Colombia barrier, right? It is so easy to mitigate something going so wrong in this region that I don't think it's a reason for people to really fear. A little bit of preparation, and you're completely covered, and you can just go where it makes sense. And then when some other country is treated terribly and Nicaragua is forgotten, you can just move back to Nicaragua, and great, right? Does it suck that you could potentially have to do that? Yep, that sucks. But could you have to do that anywhere? Yes, it's always a risk, always. Just how life is. That's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Luke says, your swagger has superseded the lagger. Edwin says, I saw videos on TikTok saying historical Google Street View specialty images of Detroit neighborhoods from 2009 to today, and that heartbreaking because many houses seen in 2009 are long gone. Yeah, Detroit, which I used to live in, had way too many houses, and empty houses invites crime. And so they had to do something about it. And so part of their revitalization of the city was to knock down unneeded houses. Hey, Itchafix is here. At the risk of you asking you to repeat yourself, what Exodus is the title referring to? The U.S. Exodus to Nicaragua. We have so many people coming into Nicaragua this week from the channel. Like, this is the noticeable uptick. We thought it would be January, and we saw a little bit more, but in February, we see, I mean, it's only barely after January, right? But the first week of February is so many people moving in just from the community. Like, it is truly noticeable that we have many more people, and they all seem to be American. Normally we get at least as many Canadians as Americans, if not a lot more, and now it's specifically Americans really flooding in. Is it going to keep going? I'm guessing it's going to go for a while, but that it's so noticeable is a really big deal. Carlos, my dad got drafted when he was 17 during the Contra War. Ugh, that's no fun. I assume he got drafted on the Nicaragua side? I don't think the U.S. side had a draft for that. I don't think the U.S. had any official. They couldn't draft because officially we weren't even here. Edwin says, especially from 2011 onwards, Detroit is a failed city, but how is it still standing today? Actually, Detroit is not that bad today. So I lived in the Detroit area in 1994 to 1995, not a long time, a couple of years. And it was rough, like really rough. That was a failing city at the time. But now, because they've taken, it hit rock bottom. And they just started bulldozing communities. And now it's a halfway decent city. It's got a lot of problems still, but it's got a lot of good going on too. It's in a good position. It's right across the river from Windsor. It has a lot of manufacturing. It has a lot of things that anchor it. I think it's going to be absolutely devastated by the new sanctions in the U.S. I think that's going to make the industries in Detroit just terrified and have to start doing something, and so that's going to be really tough. But it's not that bad today. We'll see. Oh, really need more caffeine. Guala says, I homeschool my kids here in Toronto. We were thinking of school in Nicaragua. Homeschool in Nicaragua is fine. Yes, we homeschool our kids here in Nicaragua. It's officially not allowed or semi not allowed for Nicaraguans, but never has anyone said a word to us about it whatsoever. It's like, as if you became citizens, which is not an option, that may get some people being like, hey, you should do something. But as residents, they don't say a thing. Now we have the additional benefits that officially, because we're Texans, Texas identifies our kids as part of the public school system in Texas as homeschoolers. So if anyone asks, it's like they're in Texas school, like they are. It's just that Texas has homeschool. But no one has ever asked. No one's ever said a thing. I do know people in the community who have had people come by and talk to them, but when they're like, yeah, we're foreigners and we homeschool our kids, they're like, oh, okay. But the public school is open to you. You can just come. We'd love to have your kids, right? So there are certainly options for going to school, but just doing homeschool the whole way through is fine. If you homeschool from the U.S., if you have a U.S. diploma, which a lot of, or Canadian diploma, which a lot of kids do when homeschooling to expats from there, then university should be no problem at all. If you purely homeschool and don't have a North American diploma of any sort, I would assume that university will be some kind of a pain because of that. But in that case, look at university somewhere else. It's not very often you want to send your kids in person to university these days anyway. So, depends on your kids, depends on what they want to study. But I recently did a video on homeschooling and going on to university here and why for my kids. One, we don't care if they go to university, but also exactly what they would do to have the options to go where they might want to go. Because it's all about managing that and figuring out how you want to approach it, right? James says, hello there. Saw a video from Nicaragua, Sutiava. That would be me. There's a tree, looks like a big stump that has historic significance. Didn't quite understand. Can you send me a link to that video? Because I'm not sure which stump it could be. There are a lot of stumps in the city. Diane Kanki says, Sandino tried to confront the U.S. military in a conventional way and failed miserably, so he then opted to do guerrilla warfare, which Vietnam copied. That is true. And Vietnam copied pretty darn well. Sandino movie is on YouTube. Oh, cool. Janet says, I'm back, but I have to go to sleep early, lame, because I didn't get much sleep yesterday, and my next class is at 4 a.m. Oh, I am tired, too. I was up until 5 a.m. Oh, no wonder I feel tired. I just realized I only got 3 hours of sleep. I was watching Roswell with my kids. Alex says Matagalpa is very nice. It is. I said leg again. That's where we are. Desert says little leg. You're good. Hey Scott, good to see you. Oh, it's Tusk. Hey Tusk, how you doing? Luke says stepping out for a Mazzanti meal. Back soon. Adio. Luco says they could revoke passport. So they can revoke passport, but that's a very bold move that the U.S. is not normally going to do. There's always they could refers to anything, right? They can send assassins and have them assassinate you. Can they do it? Yes. Do we actually think they would do that? No. Why? Because one, that would just open them up to open warfare. Two, it would create a fifth column inside the country. Why do they not want to revoke passports? One, completely undermine public faith in the country. Two, it would give every American abroad a guaranteed path to asylum in other countries instantly, shifting some of the most powerful Americans out of the sphere of influence. You would instantly be free of anything coming from the United States. All that, we want your money, we want your taxes, we want your information. Nope, sorry. We just got revoked abroad. We were granted asylum in another country. We are now somewhere else, right? We being the pool of people that the United States has violated UN laws against. And the U.S. depends on other countries allowing the United States to operate with impunity against its own citizens abroad. Revoking your passport basically takes away all of their leverage, right? So could that be a really annoying thing they could do to people? Yes. But once again, huge backfire, extremely risky, and just there's no precedent for it, right? So look out for anything like that. And I know we're in unprecedented times. It's not really true. You know, we saw the Weimar Republic fall. We know what's going on. But jumping to but what if they did this? That's why we have the video, never use what if risk assessments. Risk assessments are done by how likely something is to happen. You never do it by but what if. Because if you do what if, right? Let's take the common example. I'm going to drive from New York to Los Angeles, 3,000 miles by car. The other option is I'm going to take a flight from New York to Los Angeles. If I want to be safe, if I care about safety, which one do I do? The answer is fly. Every time, no matter what. Even this week in the United States where we're having an accident a day. Even with that, you fly. Why? Because flying is safer. For every mile that you're in the air, you are many times more likely to survive than every mile you are on the ground. Flying is, and you can go through a whole bunch of explanation as to what makes flying safer. Lower density of traffic, better trained pilots, more safety measures, more coordination, guarantees that people are more awake. There's simply, while being in the air feels dangerous, having that three-dimensional space makes you so much less likely to crash into something. All kinds of things that just make flying safer. So that's great. We can easily come up with flying is safer, period. But it's easy for the conversation not to end there. And someone to say, okay, yeah, flying's safer, I get that. But, and as soon as they say but to flying is safer, we know that. You know they're going off the rails, but humans do this. And they say, but what if the wings just fall off? You're like, okay, the wings could just fall off. And they're like, what would you do then? Well, I'd die. Well, I don't want to be in a position where if the wings just fall off, I would just die. Okay, but what if the plane is up there and the wings fall off and it crashes into the car you were driving? You'd also die, just as certainly. So by that logic, you also wouldn't drive or walk or stay home, because in all those cases, you're going to just die if the wings came off and it's hitting the spot that you were. But people pick and choose. They say, okay, if I'm in the plane, I'm worried about this scenario and I need that specific scenario to be mitigated in a way that the existing mitigation isn't okay. Right? So how often do planes' wings fall off and plummet to the ground and kill everyone in a passenger plane? Well, the US hasn't had a death of something like that as far as I know in the history of aviation. If it has, it's like one flight, and that's out of a lot of flights over 100 years, 120 years, right? That's not something you have to worry about. It just isn't. The statistics include the what ifs. What ifs are already built into everything, right? So you never want to use a what if, because what if means I know the truth, but I've convinced myself of a lie. And my brain knows it, but I haven't consciously accepted it. So I'm about to say something that is obviously exposing that I know that flying is safer than driving in this case. But I'm going to say it anyway because I don't want to fly, so I have to come up with a reverse rationalization to try to excuse my reckless behavior. Right? That's how people work. So the same thing's going to happen anytime with politics, anytime with travel, anytime with dealing with governments. People get nervous about governments. They worry. They've heard stories, and they say, "Oh, this really bad thing could happen." You're like, "Okay, but what is the risk that that's going to happen? What is the actual chance?" And if it's 0.1%, 1%, 10%, at what point do we stop worrying about it? Because at some point, we're more likely to be wiped out by a meteor than we are to have that thing happen, right? What if, Trump suddenly became 100 feet tall and could fly? Okay, well, a couple things. One, all kinds of rules of physics have been broken to get to this point, so nothing we can't plan. We don't know what's wrong, right? Endless possibilities here. And two, how is he going to use those powers? I don't know. We would just be guessing, right? So what if the United States started revoking citizenships, revoking passports, doing different things? What would that do? It's hard to say. There's so many ways that they could revoke passports. There's so many ways that you could try to mitigate it. There's so many underlying components. You'd have to see it happen, especially given any event that is so unlikely that you can't really predict it. It's not like, what if Trump lowered taxes by 1%, just average income tax? What if he did that? That's super predictable. There's ways that would impact the economy and you personally that are just very obvious. Like, okay, we know how this has happened. We've had taxes added, we've had taxes taken away. We know how the market behaves and how individuals behave. You'd be able to calculate it in almost all cases. Very straightforward. But coming up with something that's never happened before and we have no reason to believe is going to happen and trying to figure out what would happen there is a totally different thing where there's just so much we can't predict. And my camera just died, so I'm going to grab a battery and swap that out. And I'm going to take a really quick break while we do this, guys. So please go to the bathroom, get a drink, do your things, jump up and down for a minute. I am going to I'm going to refill the water for my kids and get a cup of tea and get a little bit more caffeine into me so that I can ramble on for a little bit longer. But we're going to turn on the camera here in just a second. We got the battery in. And I can't throw up the screen that says anything because I don't have that programmed on OBS that I'm using yet. I haven't learned all those things. But I will be back in just a minute. So give me just a minute and we're going to hit all of this again. We'll go for a little walk, little dog. Come with me. Come with me. Stay there. No, you're going to go. Okay. Here we go. Oh, yeah. We're back. I'm coming. I have tea and a meatball. Tea and a meatball. Right. Here we are. I just went out there, and my housekeeper is apparently spending the night. So she's hanging out on the couch watching movies. I'm like, what? Oh, hey. Because it's like 7:30, which is not super late, but she normally leaves about 2 hours ago. How many people did we lose? We gained people while taking a break. This is fantastic. I'm going to type that I'm back in case. Okay. Oh, you guys need to write more. I've like almost caught up. James says there's an economics paper that is a roadmap for what Trump is doing. Saw a video of Professor of Economics interview for National Post. Patricia says it's not that easy. You need health certificates for the pups. I suppose that's true. Going to hunt. I'm just gonna have this. I think this delicious vegetarian meatball that I just found. We have penne pasta and meatballs out there. So sorry, I didn't get dinner. Larry is here. Just jumped on. Hope my membership won't be terminated for missing the first 3 hours of the show. Buddhist is here. Hey, Mario. How you doing? Tony says, that's a big bottle of wine. You know, I was out. Last week I had a bottle of wine on the show, and this week I was like, okay, what am I going to drink for the show? And I don't feel it. I don't feel like a drink. I'm kind of tired and maybe need some protein. I had a very busy day. Not bad, just a very busy day. Actually good. I have some things I'm in trouble for. I finally got to talk to my lawyer about it today. He seemed very chill. So I'm like, okay, if he's not worried, I probably shouldn't be worried. Sometimes you just screw things up when you're a business person. Not like I did evil things. I just missed paperwork that's supposed to be filed that I didn't know, and it missed its deadline. And then it's like, oh, you missed this deadline. That's a big thing. And it's like, well, I don't even know. What is this? So I think mostly I just feel badly about it, that I don't want to be in trouble. I don't want to be sent to the principal's office for missing my paperwork. So so my one monitor just lost the video. That's how far behind it is. But that monitor, I'm still talking about the wine, like, so it's 5 minutes apart. So sorry for me eating the meatballs. Janet says other locals joined voluntarily, even younger than 17, regarding the war, for sure. Vince is here. He says, hey, Scott. Butta says, loves the great things to do in Nicaragua content. The political what-ifs, not so much. There's enough of that on the internet. It's true. It's just important to understand. What-ifs, there's so much, right? And there's some what-ifs are good. Like, what if you had the reasonable possibility of, for some reason, and this doesn't require taking away your passport or anything dramatic like that, you end up in a scenario where they have convinced you that being in Nicaragua during a time period isn't going to behoove you. Then move to one of many neighboring countries at very low effort, and it'll be fine. And then figure out when to come back. And that's kind of the picture. That solves so much. There's a few people that just can't do that. But almost everyone, this is such a mitigating factor to what could happen. The worst, the really bad case scenarios are like really not very bad. We would hate not being in Nicaragua. That, sure. But you'd go some other place that's nearly as awesome, right? Because lots of neighboring places are really nice, right? None of them are bad. So, Wiggy says, hello, Scott. I'm enjoying the show. James says, Scott, it's the great tamarind tree in Sutiaba. Oh, the great tamarind tree in Sutiaba. Where the heck is it? Oh, is that in the park? I should go look. This is a good meatball. This is good content. I almost choke every time I try to swallow. EG says, greetings from Texas. Itchethix sees empty chair, a voice, tea, and now, what is the meatball made of? So I can't actually tell, but it really seems to be cultured soy protein. So I'm pretty sure it's just soy granules, but it's slightly different than the normal ones we have. But I think it's just because normally we pan fry them more. So they're more crispy and they're about a little bit more than half the size, maybe 2/3. So I think they're actually the same. But I'm pretty sure that it's carne de soya, as they call it here, with a little bit of cheese and maybe a little bit of breadcrumbs, and then like pan fried, something to make it like hold together. We do them relatively often because they're really good in pasta, and we've been vegetarians a long time, and they're pretty decently easy. So, but I always forget about them. I don't know why, but Ida just whipped them up. So. James says, "One of Us," song by Joan Osborne. What brought up that? Guala says, "Thank you, Scott, for all the information. That's always that fear of change, but your information has helped a bunch." Well, thank you. I'm glad that it helps. Fear of change is definitely a huge thing. There's so much fear of the unknown, fear that there could be change that you don't prepare for, or change that you don't agree to, or you don't like the timing of. But the reality is that most change can be handled pretty elegantly. There's normally this, rarely is change so dramatically bad that you're like, no. It's more like, okay, I get it. All right, that was my meatball. And now I have tea. Elena, how you doing? I just joined. What do you mean by the exodus has just begun? So we expected this a few weeks ago, but it didn't happen. But this week, first week of February, the Americans flooding out of the U.S. and into Nicaragua and presumably other places is really noticeable. The uptick this week is huge from what we're seeing. We haven't seen anything like that since we've been here over the last 4 years. We have little bits. We saw some Canadians come in. There was a wave of Canadians maybe 8 months ago. And we kind of knew that there would be an influx of Americans around now just because there's a lot of upheaval. We were not expecting it quite this late. And we were expecting it weeks ago. And we didn't know if we would really see a noticeable amount. We knew there'd be some. There's always is. When anything's going on, anytime there's change, right? Like Goala just said, we're all afraid of change, right? So anytime that there's change of one sort that you don't control, like someone's changing things on you, who moved my cheese, then you have this negative emotional reaction. And one of the things that can be I don't mean to say positive, but a common emotional reaction to forced change is to respond with, right, oh, you're going to move my cheese? I'm going to stop eating sandwiches. Take that, change.